That's more like it. Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction as he held the amulet between his fingertips. Since the other party had been forged using Kong Shi's blood essence, he was confident the celestial master teacher that he could get it to submit to him by revealing his true identity. And everything did go according to his expectations. Wu Chen opened his eyes wide in disbelief. He was a veteran who could be considered one of the most knowledgeable individuals on the master-teacher continent. But the shocks that he had encountered that day were far more than a lifetime's worth for him. At this point, he really had to bow down to the young man. The amulet forged by Kong Shi did not even regard ancient sage Qiu Wu or ancient sage Ran Qiu as much. And yet, with a light fondle, it actually submitted to the young man. Is there nothing that you can't tame with those fingers of yours? But what had truly left him shocked was not just that. Rather, after taming the prime amulet, which countless would murder to gain possession of, Zhang Xian actually flicked it lightly into Luo Ruoxin's grasp. Ruoxin, I'll entrust this prime amulet to you. In any case, it won't be much use in my hands. Wu Chen's body froze in utter incredulity. Those 4 young men before them had been willing to whip out ancient sage artifacts one after another in order to snatch it away. And that was more than enough to show how valuable the prime amulet truly was. Yet, the young man did not hesitate to give it away to Luo Ruoxin. But what was even more shocking was soon to come. Since the prime amulet has acknowledged you as its master, it'll do for you to keep it. I have even less use for it here. Luo Ruoxin shook her head coolly as she passed the prime amulet back to Zhang Xian. It'll suffice as long as you bring me in when the Temple of Confucius opens. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xian took the prime amulet back and nodded. All right then. No matter how formidable the great codex of spring and autumn was, as one who possessed the library of Heaven's Path, Zhang Xian did not think that it was something that he would necessarily require, let alone a mere prime amulet. The reason he had gone to this ancient domain was solely because Luo Ruoxin had invited him there. He had intended to uncover the identity of the culprits who had taken Zhao Ye and his other students away, as well as to clarify the misunderstanding of the engagement to her. As long as she would not use it to harm mankind, he did not mind giving away the precious prime amulet to her. But who could have thought that the young lady would have little regard for it as well? Seeing that it was pushed and shoved around, the prime amulet was on the verge of bursting into tears. As an artifact forged personally by Kong Shi, not even ancient sage Ran Qiu was qualified to tame it, and yet there it was tossed around from person to person, as if it was useless trash that no one wanted. Don't stop me. Let me bang my head on the pillar and die. Oh right, I am just a sheet of paper. Even if I bang my head against the wall, I can't die. Just as it was feeling deeply stifled, its new master suddenly turned his gaze to it with a greedy glint in his eyes. Little amulet, since you have already acknowledged me as your master, shouldn't you show me some sincerity? There should be other treasures in the ancient domain, right? Come, bring me to them. The prime amulet twitched upon hearing those words. There aren't any treasures left in here. How can there be no treasures in here? Aren't there 99 doors? Since the door that I went through has the Dragonbone Divine Spear, surely the others should contain some kind of valuable treasure, right? Zhang Xian exclaimed in agitation. The other passageways are really just trials consisting of slaughter formations or illusory formations. There are no treasures in the rest. The prime amulet replied. Really? Zhang Xian turned his doubtful gaze to Luo Ruoxin and Wu Chen, only to see the latter two nodding in agreement. It's right. The passageways that we went through are really just trials. There was no treasure at the end. Is that so? Zhang Xian could not help but lower his head in disappointment. He had thought that each of the 99 granite doors would contain top-notch treasures comparable to the Dragonbone Divine Spear. But it seemed like he had set his expectations too high. Since that was the case, Zhang Xian had no choice but to compromise. Right, I'll have to trouble you to help me gouge out the 3 words, Ranzi Hall, on the entrance plaque. Those are good too. Prime amulet. He had met plenty of stingy people in his time, but this was the first time he had seen anyone like that. That was the entrance plaque to the Ranzi Hall. And yet he would not even let it go. Other people sought to claim swords, spears and legendary treasures from ancient domains. And yet, Zhang Xian snatched even the very face of the esteemed Ranzi Hall. Paying no heed to the tearful prime amulet, Zhang Xian did as he pleased, and took everything that was of the slightest value away from the Ranzi Hall, before leaving with a satisfied grin. As the old adage goes, only the breadwinner of a family knows how expensive every grain of rice is. It had not been easy for Zhang Xian to happen upon such a rich household, so it was a given that he had to fill his pockets to the brim in case of rainy days. Teleport us out, Zhang Xian instructed the prime amulet. The prime amulet's paper body crumpled together, and a shadow devoured their bodies. The next instant, they were already standing in the midst of the White Creek Mountain once more. As soon as Wu Chun regained his balance, he clasped his fist and bowed deeply. "Milady Zhang Shi, I have some matters that I have to attend to, so I'll have to bid my farewell right now. I'll find you all once more after my business is done." There was a deeply worried look on his face. "What happened? Do you need help?" Zhang Xian asked. "It's just a couple of trifling matters. I am very grateful for your offer, Zhang Shi, but I'll be able to resolve them on my own." Wu Chun nodded. "That's good." Zhang Xian nodded in response. "Go on. Look for me after you are done with whatever you have on hand," Luo Ruoxin replied. "Thank you, milady." With a tap of his finger, a spatial wormhole appeared before Wu Chun, and he leaped right in. In the blink of an eye, he had already vanished from sight. With his departure, Zhang Xian turned his gaze to the young lady before him and smiled. "Ruoxin, what do you intend to do now?" Having obtained the prime amulet, it no longer mattered whether they found the remaining subordinate amulets or not. The only thing that they had to do was wait for the Temple of Confucius to open. "I don't have anything on at the moment," replied Luo Ruoxin as she shook her head. "Since that's the case, why don't you come to the Zhang clan with me?" Zhang Xian said with a smile. "We left too hurriedly the previous time around, and I didn't get to introduce you to my parents." To be honest, he still felt a little awkward around his parents, especially since they had only reunited with one another a few days ago. But no matter what, they were still his blood kin, so it was only right for him to introduce his girlfriend to them. Furthermore, this would also show Luo Ruoxin that he was serious about her. A hint of redness crept onto Luo Ruoxin's fair complexion, as she replied with a slight hint of fluster in her voice. "I snatched you away from the Luo clan, causing a fallout between the Zhang clan and the Luo clan. Isn't it a bad time for me to pay them a visit?" "There's nothing bad about the timing. Don't worry, my parents are very open people," Zhang Xian reassured with a smile. Despite the slight awkwardness in their relationship, he had not even gotten around to calling them father and mother yet. He had to admit that the Xingming Sword Saints were extremely doting. Putting everything aside, what he had done back at the Luo clan had snubbed not only the reputation of the Luo clan, but that of the Zhang clan as well. Had it been any other parents, they would have already killed that unfilial son of theirs. Yet his parents actually offered him their full support. Just from that alone, he wanted to try accepting his parents. Luo Ruoxin was still a little hesitant and worried about meeting Zhang Xian's parents. She could remain cold and nonchalant toward anything in the world, such that not even the prized prime amulet could cause the slightest fluctuation in her emotions. Yet a simple matter like this actually left her at a loss. "There's nothing to worry about, I'm around. It's only a matter of time before we'll have to meet them to affirm our relationship." Knowing what Luo Ruoxin was worried about, Zhang Xian held her hand tightly and consoled her. "Let's meet them, all right?" Looking into Zhang Xian's eyes, Luo Ruoxin hesitated for a moment before eventually sighing deeply. "All right, I'll meet your parents." Seeing that Luo Ruoxin had agreed to it, a bright smile crept on Zhang Xian's face. At this moment, he suddenly recalled something and added, "But before we head back to the Zhang clan, I want to drop by the Luo clan first." "You want to drop by the Luo clan?" Luo Ruoxin frowned. After the huge upset with the Luo clan, the latter would skin Zhang Xian alive if they ever got their hands on him. So why did he want to head over? Even though Luo Ruoxin had a lot of doubts in her mind, she did not think that he was heading to the Luo clan to have a rendezvous with Luo Qiqi. She might be unfamiliar with love, but she was still able to tell that the feelings that Zhang Xian had for Luo Qiqi did not transcend those of a teacher-student relationship. That's right. Zhang Xian nodded. I have done them a huge injustice during the engagement ceremony, and since I have comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing, I want to impart it to them so as to compensate them for what I have done. It's indeed unfair that they had to go through such a matter, and it's only right for you to make it up to them. However, I fear that if you visit them right now, not only will they not appreciate your help, it might even worsen the conflict between the two clans. Luo Ruoxin replied grimly. Were it not for Yang Shi and the Master-Teacher Pavilion mediating by the side, a full-blown war between the two clans could have broken out during the engagement ceremony, even if Zhang Xian did not bear any malicious intent toward the Luo clan. His goodwill toward them was unlikely to be looked favorably upon. In the worst-case scenario, they might even come to blows with one another. That's also something that I am extremely concerned about. So, I was thinking of disguising myself, so as to prevent any misunderstandings from happening. Knowing full well that he had already become the archenemy of every single member of the Luo clan, Zhang Xian shook his head helplessly. The spatial quintessence of sealing has always been an exclusive secret art of the Luo clan. As far as I know, there has been no one in their clan who has been able to comprehend it ever since the era of their founder. So I believe this will be the best way to make it up to them. If he had tried to look into who the little princess was instead of rushing into the engagement, such a huge misunderstanding would not have happened. At the same time, the Luo clan would not have been embarrassed before so many experts. There was a slight moment of silence before Luo Ruoxin replied with a nod. I think it's a good idea. Seeing how readily the young lady expressed her approval toward the matter, Zhang Xian could not help but ask, Aren't you angry? Honestly speaking, considering how he and Luo Qiqi had nearly become a couple, he could understand it if Luo Ruoxin felt uncomfortable about this matter. To accept this matter so readily, did she really have no qualms about it? Of course not. Luo Ruoxin replied with a light chuckle reminiscent of a blooming flower. To be honest, this was probably the reason that she liked Zhang Xian in the first place. To remain humble in the face of success, constantly maintaining a low profile, never hesitating to admit his faults, keeping a magnanimous heart toward the world. Those were traits that a true man should have. And this was the kind of man that she Luo Ruoxin loved. Let's set out then. Laughing heartily, Zhang Xian grabbed Luo Ruoxin's hands tightly as he felt a surge of bliss racing through his heart. With his deepened understanding of space, through tapping into the prowess of the Dragonbone Divine Spear, Zhang Xian was able to find spatial wormholes and travel through them as well. With this, the speed of their journey was hastened significantly. It did not take long for them to arrive in the perimeter of the Luo clan. It's true that even 9-star master teachers will have trouble seeing through your disguise, but you still won't be able to fool some of the unique identification artifacts. I have an amulet here that is used specifically for disguise. It should be able to bypass the detection of most unique identification artifacts. After closely inspecting Zhang Xian's disguise, Luo Ruoxin took out a piece of paper. That will really be a great help. Zhang Xian took the amulet overexcitedly. The previous time he tried to disguise himself carefully, he had still ended up being seen through by Yang Shi. As such, if anything could further augment his disguise, he would take it willingly just to lower the risk of him being revealed. Zhang Xian took a closer look at the amulet and saw unfamiliar characters and patterns inscribed on it. He had no idea what they meant, but he sensed tremendous energy from them. He tried to scan them with his spiritual perception, but he found that he could not see through it at all. Curious, he tried placing it lightly on his forehead. Wang. As soon as the paper came into contact with his face, it swiftly dissipated into a surge of energy that delved right into his body. With just a thought, Zhang Xian's body swiftly morphed into the form of a middle-aged man in his 40s. A lanky figure with yellowish, wrinkled skin, he would appear unspectacular at first glance. However, upon taking another look, one would swiftly notice that he had a pair of sharp eyes reminiscent of those of eagles, reflecting acuity and wisdom. This is a true treasure. Zhang Xian exclaimed in astonishment. He had used his spiritual perception to scan his appearance multiple times, but he could not see any openings that suggested that he was different from how he appeared. In fact, even the Eye of Insight was unable to see through his own disguise. This disguise amulet was indeed far more effective than the disguise techniques that he usually used. With this, even if he met Yang Shi once more, the latter would not dare doubt his true identity. After checking on himself, he turned his gaze to the young lady not too far away, and saw that she had already morphed into the appearance of a middle-aged lady to match him. Even though she had concealed her ravishing countenance, her grace still showed through her subtle gestures. Ha ha ha, this disguise is superb. Say, why don't we try creating a reputation for ourselves as the next calamitous couple? Zhang Xian proposed with a chuckle. As the patriarch and matriarch of the Zhang clan, as well as top-notch experts on the continent, no one would dare speak badly of the Xingming Sword Saint openly, while they addressed them respectfully as Sword Saint Xing and Sword Saint Meng on the surface. They did not neglect to spitefully label them as the calamitous couple behind their back. Considering that the two of them were a middle-aged couple, and their prowess stood at the top of the continent as well, it would not take too long for them to forge such a reputation for themselves. Who are you calling a couple? We are just siblings. Luo Ruoxin's face reddened upon hearing those words. Siblings? But siblings usually look similar to one another, no? Is it because I'm too handsome? Is that the reason I'm so well liked by others? Zhang Xian stroked his lower jaw contemplatively. Narcissist. Luo Ruoxin burst into laughter. She had still been a little reluctant to pass off as a couple a moment ago, but all of a sudden, she felt that it might not be so bad after all. Fine, let's act as a couple then. However, we have to choose a name to call ourselves. Otherwise, it will appear suspicious if we can't even introduce ourselves when others ask who we are. My parents took a character from each of their names to derive the nickname Xingming Sword Saint. I think we can try doing the same too. How does Xuanqin Sword Saint sound to you? Zhang Xian asked. Luo Ruoxin rolled her eyes. What's the point of the disguise then? Right. I have used Yang Xian, Sun Chang, Wu Zhangxian, and several other aliases before, so I should find a new one this time around. Right, I should pass myself off as a member of the Luo clan. They should feel much safer around me if I'm one of them, especially given the fact that I'm going to impart the spatial quintessence of sealing to them. Otherwise, they might just think that I have stolen their heritage and try to kill me. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Since he was going to come up with a persona anyway, it would help in his cause if he assumed the identity of a member of the Luo clan. After all, the heritage of sealing space had remained a unique heritage of the Luo clan for many years. On top of that, the Luo clan had also grown too big over the tens of thousands of years for it to track all of its members accurately. They would have no way of verifying it, even if he claimed to be from their distant side family. Such was the case in the Zhang clan as well. There were distant relatives of the Zhang clan, due to their Zhang clan bloodline being too thin, who would not even be recorded in the clan genealogy. I think that's a good idea. I should come up with a name for myself too. How about Lingxi? I haven't given much thought to the surname yet, but I think Lingxi should do, Luo Ruoxin said. Lingxi? Two hearts united by a profound connection. That is a wonderful name. Since that's the case, I'll call myself Luo Tianya. No matter how far away we are from one another, even if the boundaries of the world sever us so, our hearts will remain connected together with one another. Zhang Xian said with a smile. That sounds great. Luo Ruoxin nodded with a slight smile. After resolving the issue regarding their names, the two of them quickly flew in the direction of the Luo clan. The current Luo clan was still in the midst of reconstructing their damaged buildings and returning the gifts that the many powers had sent to them. There were people scattered all around the area, and the place looked incredibly messy. Zhang Xian was intending to exploit this chaos to find Luo Xianqing, or Luo Qiqi, to impart the spatial quintessence of sealing to them, when he heard a gust of wind right above him. A few figures suddenly appeared above, and a deafening voice echoed in the air. Nangong Yuanfeng from the 100 Schools of Philosophers' great frontistery of Confucianism has come with a couple of juniors to pay a visit to the head of the Luo clan. The name Lingxi is derived from an idiom, which literally means two hearts are connected by a telepathic connection. It's not exclusively used for couples, but it tends to have such a connotation. It's usually used to describe people whose thoughts are in sync with one another. The name Tianya literally means the boundary of the world. In the past, people believed that the world is cuboid in shape, so naturally, if a person were to just walk in one direction, they would eventually reach the boundary of the world. They're from the 100 schools of philosophers. Taken aback, Zhang Xian raised his head to carefully assess the 5 people floating above. The person who was speaking was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a gray, flowy beard and a tall hat, reminiscent of the typical image of ancient scholars. The long robe that he wore was similar to that of a master-teacher robe, the only difference being that it was black in color. From afar, he appeared a little severe. He's wearing the same clothes as the 4 otherworldly demons who took Xiaoya and the others away. Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up. The middle-aged man was wearing the exact same attire as the 4 otherworldly demons that they had just encountered in ancient sage Ranqiu's ancient domain. From the looks of it, it seemed like the 4 young men were intending to pose as experts from the 100 schools of philosophers, so as to fool little Amulet. Yet, under the assault of the Dragonbone Divine Spear, they had still been forced to show their true form. There were 4 young men, who appeared to be in their late 20s standing around Nangong Yuanfeng. Each of them carried the imposing aura of an expert. They are all great sage One Dan introspective convalescence cultivators, Luo Ruoxin remarked with a nod. If I recall correctly, Nangong Yuanfeng is the offspring of ancient sage Zirong, a scholastic master of the great frontistery of Confucianism. Ancient sage Zirong? Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before nodding. Ancient sage Zirong was one of the Kongshir's 72 direct disciples, and he was famed as a sage. While his fame did not come close to matching ancient sage Ranqiu, ancient sage Bo Shang, or ancient sage Yin Yan, his name was still remembered even after the passing of so many years, and he continued to command the respect of many cultivators. To think that Nangong Yuanfeng would actually be his descendant. What's the great frontistery of Confucianism? Zhang Xian asked curiously. The great frontistery of Confucianism is somewhat similar to the Master-Teacher Pavilion of the continent. However, while the Master-Teacher Pavilion seeks to impart knowledge and values to ordinary mortals and cultivators, the great frontistery of Confucianism specializes solely in the research and impartation of Kongshir's teachings to the cultivated. Typically speaking, only cultivators who have reached great sage are qualified to join its ranks, Luo Ruoxin explained. Only great sage cultivators are qualified to join the great frontistery of Confucianism? Zhang Xian was astonished. He had thought that the Sanctum of Sages was the highest academy of the master-teacher continent, but who knew that the 100 schools of philosophers would actually have a great frontistery of Confucianism to top that? Zhang Xian was just about to continue asking about it when a voice suddenly boomed in the air. I'm the deputy clan head of the Luo clan, Luo Ganzhen. It's my pleasure to meet you, Elder Nangong. This way, please. Following which Luo Xuanqing's father, followed by Luo Qingchen, and the numerous other elders of the Luo clan, flew out and clasped their fists courteously. Let's head down. Seeing that the deputy clan head had come to welcome them, Nangong Yuanfeng returned the greetings before descending to the ground with the 4 young men. The crowd from the Luo clan quickly did the same as well. For those of the 100 schools of philosophers to appear at this moment, something must be up. Let's follow them. Zhang Xian sent a telepathic message to Luo Ruoxin. He knew that those from the 100 schools of philosophers had come to the master-teacher continent, but he did not expect 5 of them to suddenly pay a visit to the Luo clan abruptly. Considering the timing, it was likely that their visit had something to do with the opening of the Temple of Confucius. Luo Ruoxin nodded. With the extraordinary strength of the two and the chaotic situation that the Luo clan was in, they were able to successfully advance into the depths of the Luo clan without drawing anyone's attention. Of course, to be safe, they chose to keep a safe distance from Luo Ganzhen and Nangong Yuanfeng. Dong 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 dong. Just as they were planning to sneak into the main hall, the loud chimes of a bell suddenly echoed throughout the Luo clan. That's the assembly bell of the Luo clan? Did something happen? Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up in astonishment as he and Luo Ruoxing quickly followed the crowd from the Luo clan to where the bell was chiming from. Not too long later, he arrived at a relatively spacious square. By that time, a huge crowd had already gathered in the area. As soon as the bell started chiming, all members of the Luo clan had rushed over as fast as possible. Across the crowd, Zhang Xian saw Nangong Yuanfeng and the others from the 100 schools of philosophers sitting on top of an elevated platform at the center of the square, and Luo Ganzhen, Luo Qingchen, and the others were seated opposite them. Zhang Xian scanned the crowd and quickly found a couple of Luo clan offspring dressed in clothes that suggested that they were core members discussing quietly among one another. He quickly walked up to them and asked, "Excuse me, may I ask what has happened? Why was the assembly bell rung?" It just so happened that all members of the Luo clan were gathered there, so it was impossible for the other party to recognize all of the faces there. "You are." Seeing an unfamiliar face before them, one of the core members frowned. "I am Luo Tianya, a member from the side family," Zhang Xian replied. "Ah, I see." The core member of the Luo clan nodded. "Based on what I have heard so far, it seems like the 100 schools of philosophers wishes to acquire something that the Luo clan has, but our deputy clan head is reluctant to hand it over. Thus, Nangong Yuanfeng proposed a duel of spatial arts between the 4 students that he has brought with him and the offspring of the Luo clan, who are beneath 100 years old. If they achieve victory, the Luo clan will have to place the treasure under the care of their great frontistery of Confucianism. On the other hand, if they lose, they will hand over an equivalent treasure to the Luo clan as compensation for their disrespect." "What treasure did Nangong Yuanfeng offer in return?" Zhang Xian asked. There was little doubt that the treasure that the 100 schools of philosophers wanted was the celestial amulet of legacy. In order to goad the Luo clan into accepting the duel, the treasure that they would have to stake had to be of considerable value as well. "It's a sword that was once used by ancient sage Zirong," the core member of the Luo clan replied, as he pointed onto the elevated platform ahead. "There, you should be able to see it." Tracing the core member's finger, Zhang Xian saw a sword floating quietly above the elevated platform. Even though it was unsheathed, one could still feel a disquieting, chilling air emanating from it. Luo Ruoxing took a glance at the sword as well before sending a telepathic message to Zhang Xian. "It's a great sage artifact, but as it was once used by ancient sage Zirong, its might is comparable to most half-ancient sage artifacts. That being said, it comes nowhere close to competing with your Dragonbone Divine Spear." Zhang Xian nodded. It was too far away for him to come into contact with it, making it impossible for him to accurately gauge the true rank of the sword. Nevertheless, with his current eye of discernment, he could tell that it was a formidable weapon, albeit far beneath his Dragonbone Divine Spear. After all, the Dragonbone Divine Spear was the weapon that ancient sage Ranxiu had wielded at his peak. Back in the ancient era, there was no one who would not tremble in the face of the Dragonbone Divine Spear. Thus, how could a sword that ancient sage Zirong had only used before possibly match it? Luo Ganzhen scanned the crowd and declared loudly, "Offspring of the Luo clan, Elder Nangong of the 100 schools of philosophers, has brought his students here in order to challenge the members of our Luo clan to a duel of spatial arts. As long as you are beneath 100 years old, you'll be eligible to challenge them. Is there anyone who would like to challenge our guests here?" His voice sounded composed on the surface, but Zhang Xian could detect a furious undertone beneath the calm exterior. It seemed like despite the treasure offered by the 100 schools of philosophers, he did not intend to accept the duel. Most likely, the group from the 100 schools of philosophers had resorted to some degree of blackmail to force the Luo clan to do their bidding. Considering how the Luo clan had suffered a huge setback, they were indeed in no position to clash with the 100 schools of philosophers at the moment. "Allow me to test the strength of our guests over here." With a loud bellow, a figure leaped onto the elevated platform in the middle. Glancing over, Zhang Xian saw that the person who had volunteered himself was none other than Luo Xianqing. I'll face them too. I'm willing to give it a try as well. They might be our guests, but aren't they too insolent to challenge our Luo clan to a duel of spatial arts? Humph, that's no different from courting death. Another 3 young men leaped onto the elevated platform in the middle. They were all young experts of the Luo clan, and every single one of them emanated a powerful aura. In fact, 2 of them had reached Saint Nine Dan Pinnacle, just like Zhang Xian, and they were already serving as elders in the Luo clan. Very well. Seeing that their men had stepped up to the challenge, Luo Ganzhen nodded in approval. He turned his gaze to Nangong Yuanfeng and said, Elder Nangong, what do you propose for the format of the Duel of Spatial Arts? I have a spatial top with me, which is able to gauge the stability of a space and determine one's level of control over a certain space. Whoever is able to keep this top spinning for the longest time possible will be deemed to have the deeper understanding of space. As Nangong Yuanfeng spoke, he flicked his finger, and a top of roughly a qi long appeared before everyone's sight. It stood motionlessly on the elevated platform, and even though there was no energy emanating from it, there were still many slight dimensional rifts around it. The presence of dimensional rifts hinted that the space was not stable. In order to get the spatial top to stand, one had to reconstruct a stable space, or to put it in simpler terms, mend the dimensional rifts around. As simple as that sounded, it was actually easier said than done. It required knowledge of the 4th level of the heavenly art of dimension unravel creation. This, Luo Ganzhen could also see through that, and his complexion turned rather awful. While the offspring of their Luo clan did have a deep understanding of spatial laws, especially since their bloodline bestowed them with natural aptitude in that field, it would still be difficult for them to achieve. If Nangong Yuanfeng's students were really able to achieve this feat, then things were looking bad for them. Emoer, you'll go first. Give a demonstration to the experts of the Luo clan. Nangong Yuanfeng took a glance at Luo Ganzhen's dark expression and chuckled softly before issuing an instruction to one of the 4 young men that had come with him. Yes, the young man known as Emoer appeared to be in his late 20s. He strutted out from the group arrogantly, walked up to the spatial top, and clenched his fists tightly together. Wang! There was a slight hum in the air as a surge of spatial energy wrapped around the spatial top. In an instant, the tattered space around the spatial top was mended, and it slowly stood up. However, it lasted for no more than 3 seconds before faltering and collapsing back onto the ground. By the time he ended the demonstration, the young man known as Emoer was already sweating profusely, and he was panting heavily from exhaustion. He clasped his fist toward the Luo clan before retreating to his group. Emoer is the weakest among my students here, so it's a little difficult for him to make the spatial top stand on its end. I beg your pardon for this embarrassing demonstration. Nangong Yuanfeng chuckled softly as he addressed the crowd. He turned his gaze back to Luo Ganzhen and said, Deputy Clan Head Luo, shall we begin the duel? Luo Ganzhen's face had turned utterly livid. The other party had well and truly cornered him. By showing a demonstration, it would reflect badly on the Luo clan if they backed out of the duel at this juncture. Whether they liked it or not, they would have to accept this challenge. Deputy Clan Head, allow me to give it a try. One of the 2 elders who had stepped up to the challenge earlier clasped his fist and volunteered to go first. I'll be troubling you then, Elder Luofu. Luo Ganzhen nodded. Elder Luofu stepped forward and took a deep breath before clenching his fist together as well, just like Emoer had done earlier. Wang! The same humming sound echoed around the spatial top, and it shook a little. With sweat dripping profusely from his head, Elder Luofu exerted his strength to his limit, to the point where he spurted a mouthful of blood and staggered backward weakly. But till the very end, the spatial top still did not stand up. With a pale face and trembling body, Elder Luofu apologized feebly. I'm sorry, Deputy Clan Head. When he saw that Emoer achieving the feat easily, he had thought that he would be able to pull it off easily as well. But despite using his full strength, he still was not able to make the spatial top stand up at all. It was no wonder the 100 schools of philosophers dared to challenge them in their field of specialty. They did have confidence to achieve victory. Let me give it a try. The other Luo clan elder walked up and tried to mend the dimension rifts around the top. A moment later, blood spewed out of his mouth. Just like Elder Luo Fu, he was unable to get the spatial top to stand up. This was a challenge that appeared deceptively easy on the surface. Only when one was trying to raise the spatial top, with one's spatial prowess, would one realize that it was heavier than a mountain. As long as one's comprehension of spatial laws was not deep enough, putting aside making it stand up, even making it move was a difficult feat in itself. Seeing that 2 of his clan members had failed, Luo Ganjin's complexion turned even more awful. The 100 schools of philosophers had indeed come to claim their clan's celestial amulet of legacy. Given the dangers that their predecessors had gone through to acquire it, there was no way that they could simply give it away so easily. However, the other party had brought the decree of the ancient sages left behind by the predecessors of the 100 schools of philosophers, as well as the rules that Kong Shi had set back in his era. Left with no choice, they could only accept the duel. He had thought that even though none of the clan members had comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing, given their expertise in spatial laws, it should not be too difficult for them to achieve victory. Yet, who would have thought that they would be outdone so spectacularly? The 100 schools of philosophers sure was fearsome. Deputy Clan Head Luo, is there no offspring in the Luo clan who can make the spatial top rise? If so, I won't stand on ceremony anymore. Expecting such an outcome, Nangong Yuanfeng stroked his beard and chuckled softly. Wait for a moment. A bellow suddenly sounded from the elevated platform, and Luo Xianqing took a step forward. The spatial top is an artifact that you have brought out, so there's no way we can be certain that you haven't tampered with it beforehand such that our clan members won't be able to make it stand. Furthermore, despite all that has been said and done, don't you think what's most important is to be able to utilize one's spatial arts effectively in a battle? Why don't we have a duel instead? Your students will lower their cultivation to fight with us. And if they are able to win, we'll admit our defeat. Otherwise, I'm afraid that we can't go with your judgment. You are suggesting a duel? Nangong Yuanfeng queried. That's right. Luo Xianqing nodded. Ultimately, the main purpose of comprehending spatial laws was to raise one's cultivation and fighting prowess. Since that was the case, why should they waste their effort on something as extraneous as moving the spatial top? A duel would be a far more direct method to determine their qualification. You seem to be very confident. Very well, our 100 schools of philosophers will go with your proposal. Nangong Yuanfeng chuckled confidently. The heritage of the 100 schools of philosophers originated from Kong Shi, and they had received the complete inheritance from the predecessors. Not to mention, these students were all from the great frontistery of Confucianism. They were elites who could easily fend off hundreds by themselves. There was no way they would fear battle. To challenge them to a duel was utter foolishness. Deputy Clan Head Luo, can I take his word for it? Nangong Yuanfeng turned to Luo Ganzhen and asked. Of course. Luo Ganzhen nodded. At the rate things were going, it was unlikely that there would be any eligible Luo clan member who would be able to get the spatial top to stand up. In fact, even he did not have absolute confidence that he could do it. At the very least, there was still a hope of success if it was just a simple duel. Since that's the case, Emoer, you'll be their opponent. Hearing that Luo Ganzhen had agreed to the matter, Nangong Yuanfeng nodded. While Emoer might have exerted himself quite a bit in order to drive the spatial top, he should still suffice to deal with the juniors of the Luo clan. Hearing Nangong Yuanfeng words, Luo Ganjin's nostrils flared in fury. That was blatant disdain for their Luo clan. It was just a moment ago that the Zhang clan had trampled on their pride and humiliated them. And now, the 100 schools of philosophers were doing the same. Were the heavens really heralding the fall of their Luo clan? Equally infuriated by Nangong Yuanfeng's words was Luo Xianqing, and with a furious bellow, he walked to the center of the elevated platform and roared. Come on then, let me see just how powerful you are. Heh. The young man known as Emoer chuckled softly as he walked up and said, You are at St. 8 Dan Dimension Sundering Realm Primary Stage. I shan't take advantage of you, and will lower my cultivation to the same level as you. Voila! After saying those words, Emoer's aura swiftly declined to Luo Xuanqing's level. Alright, let's begin. Seeing that Emoer had finished suppressing his cultivation, Luo Xuanqing immediately dashed forward and thrust his palm forth. Kacha! The rumbling of thunder reverberated through the air, as devastating might poured forth from Luo Xuanqing's palm. His fighting prowess had advanced significantly since the last time he clashed with Zhang Xian at the Sanctum of Sages. While he still had not achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation, he was not too far away from Dimension Sundering Realm Intermediate Stage anymore. 1 Qi equals 33 centimeters. Luo Xuanqing won't be a match for him. Zhang Xian could not help but shake his head. The fact that the young man from the great frontistry of Confucianism is able to make the spatial top stand for several seconds means that his grasp over space is already nearing the level of spatial quintessence. Luo Ruoxi nodded in agreement. In comparison, Luo Xuanqing still has much to improve on. Furthermore, the battle techniques that they cultivate are not on the same tier. It's only a matter of time before Luo Xuanqing loses. The 100 schools of philosophers were filled with experts who had inherited Kong Shi's heritage. They had all kinds of powerful battle techniques that were on par with, if not surpassing, those of the Master-Teacher Pavilion headquarters. No matter how powerful the Luo clan's battle techniques were, there was no way that they could compete with them. Zhang Xian sighed deeply in response as he continued watching the battle on the stage. At this moment, Emoer had already begun launching his counterattack. His movements were extremely simple. He raised his finger and tapped the space in front of him lightly. Voila! The space around Luo Xuanqing was immediately sealed up tightly, unable to be broken no matter how much force one exerted against it. Luo Xuanqing swiftly executed a series of ferocious assault in order to break free from the sealed space, but to no avail. Recognizing the technique used, Luo Ruoxin explained, "This is a spatial art known as the mirror sealing art." Mirror sealing art? It serves to seal a person within a completely isolated space, a little reminiscent to the world within a mirror. No matter how those within a mirror struggle, they will never be able to break free of their constraints and harm those on the other side of the mirror. That is basically the principle of the battle technique. To utilize the power of space to seal others in another dimension, unable to break free. Luo Ruoxin explained grimly. In terms of prowess, it's inferior to your spatial quintessence of sealing, but the effects are roughly similar. It's indeed a formidable move, but it's true that Luo Xuanqing won't be able to harm the other party if he is sealed within a mirror-like space. But won't the other party be unable to attack him? As powerful as the battle technique sounded, it had a fatal flaw. The effect worked both ways. While the cultivator inside the sealed space was unable to harm those outside would not be able to harm the cultivator inside. It went without saying, it would still be a formidable technique in a group battle, but in a one-on-one duel, it seemed to be a waste of time and energy. After all, nothing would be achieved from this move. In contrast, there were some variations of spatial sealing arts where the caster could travel freely in and out of the sealed space in principle, which would make them a more efficient technique in a one-on-one. It's true that the other party won't be able to harm Luo Xuanqing unless the mirror-like space is destroyed. Nevertheless, the fact that the other party controls the mirror means that he has the initiative in the battle, thus putting him in a favorable position, Luo Ruoxin said. I see. Zhang Xian nodded slightly before falling silent. Being in control of the mirror-like space meant that Emoer could decide where and when the space should break, thus allowing him to make a move whenever he wanted and catch the person within the space off guard. I admit that this mirror-like space is a good concept, but it isn't that easy to trap Luo Xuanqing, Zhang Xian said. Right after those words were spoken, Luo Xuanqing's hair suddenly rose, and a unique surge of energy wrapped itself on the surface of his body. His aura grew more powerful and imposing, reminiscent of a ferocious tiger. He thrust his palm forward forcefully. Voila! The mirror-like space shattered into innumerable fragments. He has activated his bloodline. Luo Ruoxin frowned. With her eye of discernment, she could tell that Imoer's mastery of space far surpassed that of Luo Xianqing, and Luo Xianqing himself should have realized that fact as well. Cornered, Luo Xianqing had no choice but to activate his bloodline ability. With the augmentation of the Luo clan's bloodline, Luo Xuanqing's sensitivity toward space was enhanced tremendously, thus allowing him to break the mirror-like space and attack Imoer directly. Boom! As the two palms collided, a furious gale raged in the area. Countless cracks surfaced on the floor of the elevated platform like a spider's web. Luo Xianqing has lost. Zhang Xian shook his head. The other party's comprehension of spatial laws, cultivation and battle techniques are all above his. There's no way Luo Xianqing could have won. Luo Ruoxin shook her head and sighed. Right after those words were spoken, Luo Xianqing was forced to retreat 8 steps, before a frenzied spurt of blood spewed from his mouth. His body wavered a little before eventually collapsing to the ground. Teacher! After subduing Luo Xianqing with a single palm strike, Imoer clasped his fist before turning around and returning to the group with a nonchalant look on his face, as if he had just accomplished something insignificant. Young Master Xianqing! An elder hurriedly rushed forward to feed Luo Xianqing a pill and infused some zhenqi into him, and only then did the latter recover a little. The injuries that he had sustained and the side effects from activating his bloodline had left his limbs with a wobbly feeling, devoid of any strength. I have embarrassed the clan. Please punish me. With a pale face, Luo Xianqing staggered up to his father and kneeled down. Rise. You aren't to be blamed for this matter. In that moment, Luo Ganzhen looked as if he had aged 10 years. All along, while he would not be so arrogant as to say that the heritage of their Luo clan was the top in the world, he did not think that they were too far from it. Yet, who would have thought that they would be utterly defeated in their field of specialty? Throughout the entire battle, that Imoer person had only executed spatial arts, and faced with such a situation, they really had no choice but to admit their defeat. Yes, Luo Xianqing lowered his head shamefully. It was one thing for him to be unable to defeat Zhang Xian in the same cultivation realm, but to think that he would not be a match for these people either. The feeling of superiority that he had always felt as a genius of the Luo clan suddenly popped like a bubble, leaving not a single trace behind. Father, what do we do now? Luo Xianqing asked telepathically with clenched fists. While his cultivation was only at dimension-sundering realm primary stage, due to the purity of his bloodline, he could already be considered the strongest expert among the younger generation of the Luo clan. While there were plenty of other Luo clan offspring beneath 100 years old, who were in a higher cultivation realm than him, they were unlikely to be a match for the crowd from the 100 schools of philosophers in a fight in the same cultivation realm. Furthermore, based on what Nangong Yuanfeng had said, it seemed like the person whom he had faced was the weakest of their group, and yet, he did not stand the slightest chance at victory at all. Things really were not in their favor. Luo Ganzhen hesitated for a moment before replying. There's nothing we can do, unless your younger sister is willing to make a move. Currently, the person who commanded the highest control over space was not him, or any other elders, but that daughter of his. Having assimilated the dimension silencer, while she had not comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing yet, her ability to manipulate space would never lose against those fellows before them. But ever since the Zhang clan departed, she's locked herself in her room, unwilling to come out, Luo Xianqing said gloomily. As Luo Qiqi's elder brother, he could feel the deep emotions that she had for Zhang Xian, and for Zhang Xian to reject her publicly and leave with another woman. This blow was simply too great for someone as young as her to take. She needed some time to come to terms with the matter, and he was unwilling to bother her at a time like this. This is an emergency situation, so it's no time for her to be throwing a tantrum. Quick, call her out. Luo Ganzhen instructed. Yes. After a moment of hesitation, Luo Xianqing nodded before rising to his feet, intending to head off to find his younger sister. However, at this moment, Nangong Yuanfeng suddenly chuckled softly and said, Deputy Clan Head Luo, if this is the capability that you and your clan members wield, You shouldn't send them up here to publicly embarrass themselves. No matter how many weaklings come up to challenge my students, it's only a waste of time and effort. So, if you don't have anyone more formidable than him, I suggest that you admit defeat. At the very least, you will be able to preserve a shred of dignity for your Luo clan. Hearing Nangong Yuanfeng's words, Luo Ganzhen nearly exploded on the spot. He was just about to refute those words when a calm voice suddenly sounded from beneath. It's just a duel, so why don't I? Following which, a middle-aged man with yellowish, wrinkled skin leaped onto the elevated platform from the crowd beneath. Give it a try too. Who is that fellow? I have no idea. I don't recall seeing such a face before. He's probably from the Side family, right? I know most of the more notable individuals from the Side family, but his face doesn't seem familiar. Why is he running up at this moment? I don't know that, but he doesn't seem too weak. Perhaps he might just be able to pull something off. Seeing that a middle-aged man had barged out of nowhere, a huge commotion broke out beneath the stage. Everyone glanced at one another in confusion, unsure of what was going on. Most of the notable figures in the Side family tended to know one another, but the middle-aged man's appearance did not seem to jog anyone's memory. Shockingly, it appeared that no one recognized him at all. You are? Luo Ganzhen asked with a frown. I am Luo Tianya, a distant relative of the Luo clan. I am not often in the clan, so it's normal that you don't recognize me, deputy clan head. Zhang Xian clasped his fist and reported, since he was there to compensate the Luo clan. This was a good opportunity to recoup the reputation of the Luo clan. Thus, after hearing Nangong Yuanfeng's words, he had not hesitated much before leaping right up. Luo Tianya? Luo Ganzhen shot a glance toward the first elder Luo Qingchen, only to see that the latter was equally confused. It seemed like not even the first elder was aware of whom the other party was. Luo Qingchen stared at the middle-aged man before him for a long while, but he found that he was unable to identify the other party, so he could only respond with an awkward chuckle. The Luo clan's heritage has been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and its offspring have spread far and wide across the master-teacher continent. There isn't a genealogy book for the Side family, so there's no way to confirm his identity for certain. Nevertheless, we can't deny the possibility that there might be a member of the Side family who has worked hard and climbed up with his own ability. This was a problem that arose when a clan got too big. Each year, there would be a lot of disciples who headed out to venture into the world, and no one could guarantee that they would not have affairs outside. If they bore offspring, it would be hard to tell if that person was truly a member of the Luo clan without checking their bloodline. Understanding this logic, Luo Ganzhen shook his head helplessly before turning back to the man before him. Tianya, I understand your wish to stand up for the clan, but they are the experts from the 100 schools of philosophers, and the topic of the duel is comprehension of spatial laws. This isn't a problem that can be resolved with just sheer strength. Honestly, he did not think that it was likely that a member of the Side family would be able to defeat the 100 schools of philosophers. Even Luo Xianqing, who boasted one of the purest Luo clan bloodline, had ended up suffering a tragic loss, so he dared not wish that a member of the Side family would really be able to achieve victory. Why don't you allow me to give it a try? I am a member of the Side family, so even if I lose, it won't bring shame to the Luo clan. Zhang Xian said. Luo Ganzhen fell into deep contemplation. The other party was right. They had already embarrassed themselves enough as it was. So even if another member of the Side family lost in the duel, it would not really worsen the plight that they were in anyway. It also happened that they needed to buy some time for his daughter to get there. Very well then. Luo Ganzhen nodded. Turning to Nangong Yuanfeng, he said, Elder Nangong, Luo Tianya over here wishes to challenge your student. But before Nangong Yuanfeng could say a word, Emoar had already exclaimed with the utmost contempt. Challenge? You want us to fight a mere Side family offspring of the Luo clan? It seemed like the Luo clan had really gotten so desperate that they would clutch at every straw they had. Nangong Yuanfeng's eyebrows shot up in displeasure as well. The blood of ancient sage Zirong flows in through veins of the offspring of our Nangong clan. The rules of propriety from Kongsher state that one should regard a guest with courtesy and respect. Do you think that it's appropriate for a member of the Luo clan's side family to challenge us? Or is the Luo clan trying to humiliate us through this? Even the core members were not a match for them, so to find a nobody from the side family to challenge them, the Luo clan really was not taking them seriously. Humiliate. Before Luo Ganzhen could respond to those words, Zhang Xian had already shaken his head and uttered disdainfully, "You sure have a grand view of yourselves. Worry not. A bunch of weaklings like you aren't worthy of me going out of my way to humiliate you." Not expecting to be despised by a mere offspring of the side family, Nangong Yuanfeng narrowed his eyes threateningly. "If you dare not battle against me, just say so. There's no need to find so many excuses." Zhang Xian placed his hands behind his back and spoke nonchalantly. "Arrogance of the ignorant." Emoer harumphed coldly. It was one thing for offspring of the 100 schools of philosophers like them to come down to a place as remote as this. But to think that these countryside bumpkins would still dare to say such words to them. Did that fellow really not know how insignificant he was before them? Emoer was not the only one who had such thoughts. By the side, Luo Ganzhen also clutched his forehead in distress. Did this member of the side family really not know the significance of the term 100 schools of philosophers on the master-teacher continent? Otherwise, how could he bring himself to utter such ridiculous words? He's really as shameless as that Zhang Xian. Luo Xianqing harumphed coldly on the inside. As an ex-friend of Zhang Xian's, I have seen just how shameless that man was. However, as shameless as that man was, he did have the capabilities to back it up. As for you, is it really good for you to be saying such words? Even though Emoer was so furious that he could kill, he still had to the reputation of the 100 schools of philosophers to maintain. So he pointed to the spatial top by the side and said, "Fine, I'll have a duel with you if you like. However, you should at least show that you have the qualifications to challenge me first. If you can at least get this spatial top to stand, I'll give you a chance." "You want me to make it stand?" Zhang Xian asked as he shot a glance at the spatial top. All of a sudden, the blazing top suddenly sprung up and began spinning non-stop, as if fearing that it would be struck to death if it showed the slightest hint of indolence. "Do you mean like this?" Emoer rubbed his eyes in disbelief. With his current proficiency, the most he could do was get the top to stand up. He still was not capable of making it spin. In fact, the only person who was capable of doing so was his teacher, Nangong Yuanfeng. Even so, his teacher would still have to put in a great deal of effort. Yet, for the spatial top to start spinning from a mere glance, did that fellow shoot lasers out of his eyes or something? Nangong Yuanfeng was equally stunned by the abrupt happenings. He had thought that this was a play staged by Luo Ganzhen in order to reduce this duel to a farce. But after witnessing this sight, it had become apparent to him that the inconspicuous-looking middle-aged man was actually a true expert. At the same time, Luo Ganzhen, Luo Xianqing, and the members of the Luo clan stared at the sight with mouths agape, almost as if they had seen a ghost. Could it be? Luo Ganzhen suddenly thought of something, and he quickly turned his gaze toward the first elder Luo Qingchen. That's likely the case. Other than the person who has comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing, I really can't think of another man who has the ability to make the spatial top spin like that. Luo Qingchen nodded. We have been looking for him among the inner clan members. But who would have thought that he was from the distant side family? Luo Ganzhen's face reddened in agitation. He had already resolved himself to face a tragic loss, and he had thought that the Luo clan would be utterly humiliated. Not even in his wildest dreams could he have imagined that the anonymous expert, whom they had been searching for all this time, would appear at this crucial moment to save them from the crisis. On top of that, the other party was a member of a distant side family that even the first elder did not recognize. I have really underestimated the Luo clan. It seems like they still have many formidable experts hidden among them. Taking a deep breath, Nangong Yuanfeng suppressed his astonishment and instructed, Emoer, you have to tread carefully. His comprehension of spatial laws is surely nowhere beneath yours. Yes, teacher. Knowing that the middle-aged man standing before him would not be an easy target to deal with either, Emoer quickly swallowed his complacency as he walked back to the center of the elevated platform. He clasped his fist and bowed. Feel free to choose the format of your duel. The format of the duel? With his hands still behind his back, taking on a seemingly unguarded position, Zhang Xian shot an impassive glance at Emoer and said, Do you think that you are worthy of dueling me? You. Emoer's face reddened in fury. Let that old fellow face me by himself, or if you still find that unreasonable, I'll allow the 5 of you to come at me together, Zhang Xian said calmly. Audacious. You scoundrel, do you know whom you are talking to? I advise you not to let your ego get the better of you. Just because you have some talent, you've become so complacent, as if there's no one better than you in the world. It seems like I really should pound some humility into those haughty bones of yours. Upon hearing his words, the other 3 students of Nangong Yuanfeng glared at him furiously. If not for their position, they would have dashed right up and torn that fellow's mouth apart. To challenge the 5 of them simultaneously, who do you think you are? Do you think that you are Kong Shiyao? At the same time, Luo Ganzhen and Luo Xuanqing's lips also twitched uncontrollably upon hearing those words. That middle-aged man is truly daring. To dare to humiliate even the 100 schools of philosophers. Is he really unafraid of death? That being said, why does it feel so exhilarating to hear him say such words? Calm down, calm down. I mustn't laugh at this moment. That would be too embarrassing. In truth, the 100 schools of philosophers had appeared several times in the master-teacher continent before, but they had always taken a high and mighty position, which was also understandable, since they had succeeded the heritage of Kong Shi and his 72 direct disciples. However, from the man's tone, it seemed as if those lot from the 100 schools of philosophers were the true countryside bumpkins. Really? So what if they were from the 100 schools of philosophers? Was it really something worth bragging about? Well said. Weren't you all arrogant just now? Screw them all. This is the kind of dominance that our Luo clan should have. If we had maintained such an attitude from the very start, do you think that Zhang Xian would have dared to reject the engagement with our little princess? Even if that Zhang Xian inflated his ego tenfold, he would not dare say such words. While those on the elevated platform were still astonished by the turn of events, the many spectators beneath were so excited that they almost began dancing. After all of the grievances that they had suffered, there was finally an outlet for them to vent their frustration. A duel is not won by having a sharp mouth. I hope that you have the strength to match your words. With a livid expression, Nangong Yuanfeng flicked his wrist and raised his head. The fact that you are able to keep the spatial top spinning shows that your comprehension of spatial laws has already reached the 4th level. As such, it's indeed true that Emoer would not be a match of you. Why don't you propose the format of the duel that is fair for the both of us then? Don't worry, I won't take advantage of you all. There's not much point competing over a mere top. So just like Luo Xianqing, I'll challenge you all to a battle of strength. As long as Zhang Xian willed it, he could get the spatial top to spin for many days without falling. But that would not be enough to recoup the Luo clan's reputation. Since he had already chosen to deal with the 100 schools of philosophers, he should go all out. Before Nangong Yuanfeng could say anything, Emoer narrowed his eyes. You wish to challenge us to a battle of strength? Are you certain? His comprehension of space was not on par with the other party, but as a genius of the great frontistry of Confucianism, he was skilled in all kinds of top-notch battle techniques. On top of that, his cultivation was also higher than the other parties, so if they fought in a normal duel, he was confident that he would be able to achieve victory. This was an ideal opportunity to teach that arrogant brat a lesson and grind some humility into his bones. Of course I'm certain. Make your move. Zhang Xian replied arrogantly, chuckling softly. A hint of viciousness flickered across Emoer's eyes. Very well then. I won't take advantage of you either, so I'll suppress my cultivation down to St. Nine Dan Pinnacle. He swiftly suppressed his strength, and in the blink of an eye, His cultivation had already fallen to St. Nine Dan pinnacle. After that was done, Emoer clenched his fists tightly and dashed forward, intending to make the first move. Emoer, exercise some prudence when you attack him. Make sure not to hurt him too much. Nangong Yuanfeng sent a telepathic message over. Teacher, rest assured. I understand. Emoer replied telepathically as he suddenly morphed into a gust of wind, and his silhouette vanished completely from the spot. Where is he? Why did he suddenly disappear from view? A huge commotion broke out from the crowd. Clearly, Emoer had not gone all out when he fought with Luo Xianqing earlier. Perhaps viewing Zhang Xian to be a dangerous opponent, he had gone all out from the very start, and vanished from the elevated platform, leaving Zhang Xian alone in the middle. That's a unique spatial art. It utilizes the distortion of space to erase one's presence from the surroundings, allowing one to go into concealment. Luo Ganjin's face darkened. Putting aside Luo Xianqing, not even Luo Ganzhen himself was confident that he would be able to overcome this move. Utilizes the distortion of space? Luo Xianqing frowned in confusion. Light moves in a straight line, and that's how our vision work. The other party is exploiting this very property of light through warping the space around him, making it impossible for us to see him at all. Not only so, as it's a complete distortion of space, not just a simple refraction of light, it's impossible for our spiritual perception to perceive it. Of course, this manipulation is extremely straining, making it infeasible to maintain it for an extended period of time. But considering how a battle could be determined within a fraction of a second, it could be a powerful tool if used under the right circumstances. Luo Ganzhen explained. Doesn't that mean that the geniuses of our clan don't stand a chance at victory at all? Luo Xuanqing's face paled. If one could not even locate one's opponent, how could one possibly win a battle? It seems like the chances at victory are extremely slim. Luo Ganzhen shook his head gloomily. Meanwhile, at the center of the elevated platform, Luo Tianya's eyebrows shot up in displeasure as he complained grumpily. What are you leaping around for? You are giving me a headache over here. Right after saying those words, he flicked his palm out and struck the air. Pa! There was a crisp feedback to that slap. A figure was instantaneously squeezed out of a space that was supposed to be completely empty, and the figure crashed heavily down from the elevated platform and spurted a mouthful of blood before passing out. Emoa, Junior Emo, seeing the unconscious figure twitching on the ground, the faces of Nangong Yuanfeng and his 3 other students warped in horror. Even they would be hard-pressed to locate Emo once he had activated that technique. And yet, without even taking a single step, the middle-aged man had actually been able to send Emoer flying with a slap. Just how in the world was this possible? Luo Ganzhen was also rendered speechless by that feat. He had just said a moment ago that their chances of victory were slim. But then the expert from the 100 schools of philosophers had been sent flying the next instant. Was that Luo Tianya not a little too fearsome? The 3 young men quickly rushed down to pop a pill into Emoer's mouth. A few moments later, Emoer slowly regained consciousness. He stared at the sky with a dazed look, almost as if he had lost his soul. Even at that moment, he still could not understand how the middle-aged man had managed to find him and slap him out of the distorted space. Teacher, I wish to challenge him to a duel. Knowing that Emoer had suffered a heavy setback and needed some time to recover, one of the young men from the remaining 3 students clasped his fist and bowed. All right, go ahead, Nangong Yuanfeng said, as he clenched his fists tightly together. There's something weird about that fellow. Be careful. At this moment, he knew better than to continue underestimating the man. Teacher, rest assured. The young man nodded. He turned to Zhang Xian, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. I wish to challenge you to a duel. Are you willing to accept the challenge? You, Zhang Xian clicked his tongue impatiently and shook his head. Like I said, you all should come me at once, or else all you will be getting is a good pummeling. Fine, I won't take advantage of you. I'll give you a second to do whatever you want, and I won't retaliate at all. Those words really provoked the young man. Rage surged into his head, and his face looked so red that it seemed as if it would explode at any moment. He felt as if he would die of anger if he said a word more to the other party. To those of their cultivation realm, putting aside an entire second, even a tenth of a second was enough for them to claim a person's life in the midst of an intense battle. To give a second to him to do whatever he pleased without retaliating. That was really showing him utter contempt. I don't need it. I dare you to use whatever you have at your disposal, and let me see the full extent of your strength. The young man gritted his teeth and howled. Are you certain? Zhang Xian frowned doubtfully. Why not? I'm not like Nangong Mo, who can only rely on movement techniques. Don't worry. I'll use my strongest move as well, and show you that those from the 100 schools of philosophers aren't to be humiliated. Hong Long. With a roar, the young man's aura surged. Even though his cultivation was suppressed at St. Nine Dan Pinnacle as well, his aura felt almost on par with that of a great sage expert, powerful and inviolable. Since that's the case, I'll be making my move then. Hearing the young man's response, Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. Feel free. I'll make my. The young man raised his palm, intending to make a move, but before he could do anything, a blur flashed before him. Following which, he felt an intense pain assaulting his chest. Kacha! Kacha! With several bones of his ribcage shattered, he was immediately sent flying into the distance. He crashed heavily onto the ground, and just like Emoer, he ended up blacking out. Even so, his body continued twitching uncontrollably, as if he was suffering from a stroke. You were the one who told me to use my full strength and not hold back at all, Zhang Xian remarked as he gazed down on the young man lying on the ground with an innocent look on his face. All of you should have heard how I offered him a second's advantage earlier, but he turned me down. I guess the 100 schools of philosophers does value its reputation a lot. However, that might not necessarily be a good thing, as it could very well be tarnished very soon. You are courting death. Hearing how the middle-aged man was shooting his mouth so smugly after knocking out one of their peers, the remaining two young men roared furiously. They stepped out with gritted teeth, fully revealing their intention to tear the young man before them to pieces. Never has there been anyone on the master-teacher continent who dared offend our 100 schools of philosophers. The two young men took their positions on either side of Zhang Xian, and the young man on the left growled, You are Luo Tianya, right? Do you care to duel with us? If looks could kill, Zhang Xian would have burst into flames under their fiery gaze. Yes, the two of you should just come at me together. We'll save some time this way. I don't know how it is for the two of you, but honestly, I'm getting tired of this already. Zhang Xian said with a disdainful wave of his hand. Tired? Tired your head. All you have done is execute a slap and a kick, and you are already tired after that? The lips of the two young men twitched. You sent a mower flying with a punch, and our other junior with a kick. Yet you still dare to complain about getting tired? Can you at least be any more perfunctory than that? This annoying vibe. Why does it feel so familiar to me? Luo Xianqing was startled for a moment before he swiftly shook away that feeling and turned his gaze back to the confrontation. These two young men were clearly stronger than the previous two, and they would form a formidable foe if they coordinated with one another. Even though he had some confidence in Luo Tianya, he still could not help but worry. In this crucial moment, just as it seemed like a battle would break out at any moment, a deep voice suddenly echoed across the air. Both of you stand down. The two young men quickly turned their heads around, only to see that their teacher had stood up and was looking at them. Teacher, our friend over there has not only comprehended the 4th level of spatial sealing, his cultivation is equally exceptional as well. It would be no exaggeration to say that he's invincible in his class. Even if the two of you collaborate with one another to fight against him, it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to match him. Nangong Yuanfeng said grimly, while the fellow who had popped out of the Luo clan all of a sudden had an unseemly appearance. His true strength had really struck fear into their hearts. Those students that he had brought with him had been carefully selected among the student populace, the elites of the great frontistery of Confucianism. Of course, they were still lacking compared to those high rankers on the Heaven Board and Earth Board, but they could definitely match up to most talented master teachers and combat masters. Yet, for two of them to be defeated so easily, The prowess of the middle-aged man could only be described with a single word: horrifying. Even though his remaining two students were the stronger ones of the group, it was unlikely that they would be able to win against him. But he insulted the 100 schools of philosophers. Hearing their teacher proclaiming their likely loss, the two young men clashed their fists tightly in frustration. The reputation of the 100 schools of philosophers is built through our might. It's not so fragile as to be torn down by just a couple words of insults. Nangong Yuanfeng harumphed. Following which, he turned a grim look toward Zhang Xian and said, "I know it's inappropriate for an old man like me to be challenging you, but that item is something that the 100 schools of philosophers is determined to obtain regardless of the cost. I can't afford to return empty-handed, so allow me to apologize in advance." Boom! An overwhelming aura burst into the clouds as distortions appeared in the surrounding space. It felt as if even the heavens would collapse down from the immense amount of energy pouring into it. The very pinnacle of great sage, sempiternal realm. He was an expert on par with the 4 otherworldly demons from before. Like I said earlier, the 5 of you should have come at me together. Look, isn't the outcome still the same at the very end? Zhang Xian glanced at Nangong Yuanfeng indifferently. When it came to a duel of equal cultivation realm, not even the Dragonbone Divine Spear was a match for him. Those 4 young men were not weaklings, but they were still a long way off from catching up to Zhang Xian. Perhaps, this Nangong Yuanfeng might still be able to entertain him for a bit. Very well. Taking a deep breath, Nangong Yuanfeng quickly suppressed the energy in his body, and in the blink of an eye, his cultivation was lowered to Zhang Xian's level. Given his standing and seniority, it was indeed inappropriate for him to be challenging a Saint Nine Dan cultivator. However, the celestial amulet of legacy was of the utmost importance to the 100 schools of philosophers. This was a mission from the upper echelons, and if he returned empty-handed, even if he was the descendant of an ancient sage, he still would not be able to bear the consequences. Please, Nangong Yuanfeng beckoned with his hand, gesturing for Zhang Xian to make the first move. He could tell from the 2 earlier battles that once he suppressed his cultivation, it would be hard for him to match the middle-aged man. If he really wanted to win, he would have to give it his all. Of course, the prerequisite to that was that the middle-aged man had really used his full prowess in the fight against his other 2 students earlier. With such a thought in mind, Nangong Yuanfeng clasped his fist and said, "Brother Tianya, I have a request for make of you. I hope that you'll fight me with your full prowess." "With my full prowess?" Zhang Xian frowned. "Are you sure?" He did not even use his full strength when he fought with the Dragonbone Divine Spear. So would the other party really be able to withstand his full might? "Of course. I am a descendant of ancient sage Zirong, so even if my strength is lacking, I still have my dignity to uphold. I hope that you can accede to my request." Nangong Yuanfeng clasped his fist. If it was found out that a teacher of the great frontistery of Confucianism, a descendant of an ancient sage, had won only by having his opponent giving him some leeway, he would never be able to raise his head, even if he returned to the 100 schools of philosophers. Fine, I accept your request." Seeing the earnest look on Nangong Yuanfeng's face, Zhang Xian nodded. "I'll be exerting my full force from now on then. Let me see how formidable an expert who has reached the 4th level of spatial laws is." With a grand wave of his hand, Nangong Yuanfeng bellowed as he drove his junqi through his body. But barely after he had said those words, one of his students behind him exclaimed, "Teacher, be careful." So, before he could even react, Nangong Yuanfeng felt a stabbing pain assaulting his chest, and the next instant, the scenery around him retreated swiftly. The buildings of the massive ethereal shrouding city swiftly minimized into nothing more than a little black dot before completely vanishing from sight. Pooh! Only at that moment did Nangong Yuanfeng realize how powerless he was. There was a surge of energy that was coursing through his body relentlessly, and it almost felt as if he would explode from it. Unable to take it anymore, he spewed a mouthful of blood. Knowing that he might die if this continued, he immediately released the seal on his cultivation. Hung Long Long, Introspective Convalescence Realm, Aurate Body Realm, Intuitive Impulse Realm, In an instant, his cultivation reverted to the level of sempiternal realm, and by driving his Jinchi desperately, he finally managed to stabilize himself. Nevertheless, his face still remained ghastly pale from the near-death experience that he had just had. He scanned his surroundings, only to find himself in a completely foreign land. Just how freaking far had he flown out for even something as large as the Luo clan's ethereal shrouding city to have completely vanished from sight? Have I actually flown tens of thousands of li? Nangong Yuanfeng did a quick calculation, and it was almost as if a mini explosion broke out in his head. It was just earlier that he had told the other party to use his full strength. To be honest, he had already resolved himself for defeat, but he did not expect it to come so quickly and decisively. The might that he had just been struck with was something that even introspective convalescence realm cultivators, who had reached the level of consummation, would not necessarily be able to bring out. But as a Saint Nine Dan Pinnacle cultivator, he actually managed to pull it off. Is this his true strength? It's no wonder he requested for the 5 of us to go at him together. We are indeed no match for him. Nangong Yuanfeng could not help but shudder from fear upon recalling what had just happened. If he had not released his cultivation at the crucial moment and restored his strength to the sempiternal realm, he could very well have been crushed into bits. More importantly, had the other party focused his strength not on ramming him but killing him, even though his body had already achieved the level of sempiternal, the strike would have still penetrated through him, bringing instantaneous death upon him. Terrifying. How could there be such a powerful Saint Nine Dan Pinnacle cultivator in the world? In terms of talent, it feels like he's on par with even Kong Shiyao. To think that there would be such a person on the master-teacher continent. Nangong Yuanfeng thought in astonishment. With that single punch, it was already apparent who the winner of the duel was. It seemed like he would be punished when he returned back to the great frontistery of Confucianism. However, there was nothing he could do. A loss was a loss. As a descendant of an ancient sage, he could not abandon his dignity and steal from the Luo clan, just because he had lost the gamble. Forget it, I'll think about it later. Nangong Yuanfeng sighed deeply as he quickly headed back to the Luo clan. You're back. As soon as Nangong Yuanfeng returned to the square, he saw Luo Tianya sitting on his seat, and there was a steaming hot pot right in front of him. With a pair of chopsticks in his hand, Luo Tianya devoured the food before him greedily as he remarked, "We got hungry while waiting for you to come back, so we decided to have some food first. Do you want to join in?" Nangong Yuanfeng suddenly felt a deep pain in his chest. So frustrating. It was obvious that Luo Tianya was intentionally eating hot pot at this moment, so as to embarrass them. If it was found out that experts from the 100 schools of philosophers had come to challenge the Luo clan, only to be sent flying with a single strike, and by the time they returned, the Luo clan had already moved on to dinner, their reputation would be completely tarnished. Knowing that they would only embarrass themselves more the longer they remained here, Nangong Yuanfeng stowed the spatial top into his storage ring and clasped his fist. "I, Nangong Yuanfeng, admit my loss. Farewell." After which he beckoned his 4 students over and said, "Let's go." After saying those words, they swiftly flew off and disappeared from sight in the blink of an eye. Let's go. Did we just defeat the 100 schools of philosophers? Long live Tianya. Tianya, you have just made a fan out of me. I want to bear your babies. From now on, my role model shall be Tianya. I shall strive hard to become like him." There was a brief moment of silence before a deafening commotion broke out all around the Luo clan. Everyone had thought that the Luo clan would be humiliated like earlier, especially considering that their opponents were from the 100 schools of philosophers. Yet, who would have thought that Luo Tianya would single-handedly turn the tables around and restore honor to the Luo clan? In an instant, from a nobody whom no one had ever heard of, Luo Tianya had become the most respected and admired individual in the Luo clan, the idol of both youths and elders alike. Looking at the reinvigorated looks of the clan members all around him, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. His rejection of the engagement with the Luo clan had indubitably dealt a heavy blow not only to their reputation, but their morale as well. However, It seemed like this incident had helped them recover from the trauma and unite as one again. Brother Tianya, allow me to thank you on behalf of the entire clan for saving us from this dishonor, Luo Ganzhen said as he walked to the center of the elevated platform. With a wave of his hand, the sword left behind by ancient sage Zirong, which had been floating in the air all along, flew into his grasp, and he presented it to Zhang Xian. This is the gift that Nangong Yuanfeng offered for the bet. Of the entire Luo clan, there's no one more suited than you to wield it. Zhang Xian was visibly taken aback by how generous Luo Ganzhen was being. To be honest, he had helped the Luo clan in order to soothe his guilt-ridden heart, so he had not expected to receive anything in return. Thus, he quickly waved his hand and said, "This is my responsibility as an offspring of the Luo clan. This sword belongs to the entire Luo clan, so I shan't overstep my bounds." There's no need to stand on ceremony, Brother Tianya. You have saved the entire clan and united us once more. You are the only one among us who is worthy of holding this sword. Luo Qingchen insisted with a smile. Noticing the intent gazes that others were shooting him, Zhang Xian swiftly realized that there was no other way out of this. Thus, he could only nod his head helplessly and take the sword. Since you have said so, I won't stand on ceremony. Possessing the Dragonbone Divine Spear, he did not have the slightest interest in ancient sage Zirong's sword. But in any case, he could always slip it back to the Luo clan's treasure vault at a later date. If not, it would make a good weapon for Zhaoya once he had rescued her. Luo Ganzhen heaved a sigh of relief internally after seeing Zhang Xian taking the blade before asking, "If I'm not mistaken, the person who induced the submission of the predecessors earlier on was you, right?" "The submission of the predecessors?" Zhang Xian frowned doubtfully. "You are a member of the side family, so it's understandable that you are unaware of it. Our Luo clan is founded on the spatial quintessence of sealing, and if a person in the world comprehends such a quintessence, they will be able to attain the acknowledgement of our founder and make the predecessors fall in submission." Luo Ganzhen explained. "Ah, that should probably be me then." Zhang Xian widened his eyes in realization. After leaving the Luo clan earlier, he had gone to White Creek Mountain with Luo Ruoxin. Considering that the submission of the predecessors phenomenon occurred during this period of time and was related to the comprehension of the spatial quintessence of sealing, it was likely that it was really due to him. The fact that you have comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing makes you eligible to become the head of the Luo clan, Luo Ganzhen said before hurriedly clasping his fist and bowing down. "Brother Tianya, I implore you to lead our Luo clan to greater heights." "What? You want me to become the clan head?" No, how can that do?" Zhang Xian had still been wondering where this was going to when he heard the other party requesting for him to become the head of the Luo clan, and he immediately leaped in fright. He was not even a member of the Luo clan, so how could he possibly be its clan head? The Luo clan has just suffered the worst humiliation in its dozens of millenniums of history. Frenzied, Zhang Xian turned to Luo Ruoxin amid the crowd, only to see her directing an indifferent, brilliant smile at him. It was almost as if she was saying, "This is something that you stirred up, so solve it by yourself. You reap what you sow." Zhang Xian immediately realized that she could not be relied on to get him out of this mess, so he could only face Luo Ganzhen and the other elders alone. "I can understand your feelings, but I'm too used to living a carefree life. I'm afraid that I'm really not suited to being a clan head." "Brother Tianya, if that's your concern, there's really nothing to worry about. You can leave the miscellaneous matters to First Elder Luo Qingchen and me. All you have to do is help rally our Luo clan together in times of need, or during crucial moments. You can still spend the rest of your time traveling freely around the world, or go into seclusion if you like." Luo Ganzhen hurriedly said. The rejection from the Zhang clan had cost the Luo clan its prestige and honor. At a time like this, they needed a strong leader to convince their followers that the Luo clan had not fallen yet. Given how Luo Tianya had managed to subdue even the experts from the 100 schools of philosophers, if he could become the head of the Luo clan, they would be able to rebuild the Luo clan's reputation and let the whole world know that they were not a force to be trifled with. At the same time, they would also show the world that those of the Zhang clan were fools for turning their backs on them. Seeing that it was impossible for him to turn down this matter, Zhang Xian could only resort to his trump card. Even though my surname is Luo, I am only a very distant relative of the Luo clan. My Luo clan bloodline is so thin that it might not even be detectable at all. I fear that it might not be too appropriate for me to become the head of the Luo clan. That's not an issue at all. First elder, bring the bloodline basin over. Luo Ganzhen instructed before turning his gaze back to Zhang Xian. Brother Tianya, if it isn't too much trouble for you, please allow us to check your bloodline. Check my bloodline? Zhang Xian nodded slowly. If the purity of my bloodline is too low, I'd ask you not to ask me to become the head of the Luo clan anymore. Given that he had nothing to do with the Luo clan at all, it was a given that the check would end with a negative result. With that, he would have a good reason to turn down Luo Ganzhen's request. Luo Ganzhen hesitated for a moment before nodding. Very well. If the middle-aged man's bloodline was truly too thin, he would just have to marry his daughter to the other party to bind him to their Luo clan. In other words, no matter what happened, the person who had comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing would have to become the head of their Luo clan. Otherwise, just the very existence of a man who had unlocked the secrets of the Luo clan's heritage was enough to bring about the Luo clan's gradual fall from grace. Upon hearing Luo Ganzhen's orders, First Elder Luo Qingchen quickly rushed away. He returned not too long later, and with a flick of his wrist, a compass-like object materialized right in front of him. It floated quietly in the midst of the elevated platform. This is the bloodline basin. It's used to gauge the level of purity of the Luo clan bloodline within a cultivator. All in all, there are 10 levels, and each level denotes a tenth of the founder's bloodline. In other words, 1 means that the cultivator possesses a tenth of the founder's bloodline, and 10 means that the cultivator's bloodline is on par with the founder's. One has to have a purity level of at least 3 to qualify as an inner member, and 1 to qualify as an ordinary member. Anything beneath that will result in the individual being banished to the side family. Luo Qingchen explained. He raised his head to look at Zhang Xian expectantly. Brother Tianya, even though you are from the side family, the fact that you have managed to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing shows that the talent you wield is unparalleled. As long as your bloodline surpasses 1, you will already be eligible to become our clan head. No one in the Luo clan would dare to voice their objection to the matter. Surpasses 1? Zhang Xian did not think that there would be such a classification for bloodlines within sage clans. It was likely that it was through an artifact similar to the bloodline basin that he had been deemed to be an unparalleled prodigy of the Zhang clan before he was even born. Thinking about it now, he had probably been an 8, 9, or perhaps very close to a 10 in terms of Zhang clan bloodline back then. That's right. Brother Tianya, you just have to place a droplet of blood on the bloodline basin, and the compass will immediately reflect the result. Luo Qingchen said. All right then. However, I'll just say in advance that my bloodline is so thin that it's almost negligible. I hope that you won't raise the matter of having me become the head of the Luo clan anymore after this test. Zhang Xian said. As an offspring of the Zhang clan, his bloodline definitely had no ties to that of the Luo clan at all, so there was no need for him to worry at all. He flicked a droplet of his blood into the bloodline basin, and it fell into the groove at its very center. Wang! A slight whirring sound echoed in the air, and the droplet of blood suddenly burst into flames. Seemingly triggered by some unknown energy, the compass needle began spinning frenziedly. Jia! A while later it came to a stop. The number that it was pointing at. 9. How could it be 9? This bloodline basin must be spoilt. As if a streak of lightning flashed across Zhang Xian's mind. He nearly lost his mind at that ridiculous result. He was an offspring of the Zhang clan. How could he possibly have the Luo clan bloodline? And such a pure one at that. Or, did the Xingming Sword Saints make a mistake? But his blood did fuse perfectly with that of Meng Sword Saint. Wait a moment, he did check for the Zhang clan bloodline in him. And there was not the slightest trace of it at all. Did that mean that? A mini explosion occurred in Zhang Xian's head at this moment, preventing him from thinking any deeper than that. While Zhang Xian was still completely frenzied by the outcome, Luo Ganzhen, Luo Qingchen, and the others froze on the spot. Indescribable joy slowly coursed through their entire beings, and their bodies began trembling intensely in reaction. If not in consideration of their standing, they might have even begun skipping around the place excitedly. A bloodline purity of 9. That effectively meant that the middle-aged man was not just a member of their Luo clan. He was even a core member, that was even more crucial than any one of them present. It was no wonder he could comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing. Even if he had not done so, just his bloodline alone would have qualified him to become their next clan head. Knowing that this was the opportune moment to make his move, Luo Ganzhen clasped his fist and bowed down. Paying respects to our clan head. The wily elders also swiftly understood Luo Ganzhen's intention, and they quickly bowed down too. Paying respects to our clan head. If it was because they had no other choice that they were pressuring the middle-aged man to be their clan head before. After seeing the sheer purity of the bloodline he possessed, there was no way that they could possibly let him get away. They eyed Zhang Xian intently as if cougars who had found their prey. I really am from the side family. I can't possibly qualify to become your clan head. Zhang Xian protested feebly, thinking that the middle-aged man was just too shocked by the abrupt turn of events. Luo Ganzhen explained with a radiant smile on his face. Brother Tianya, you need not be so humble. The heritage of our Luo clan bloodline happens by chance. Those from the main family can very well birth offspring whose Luo clan bloodlines are negligibly thin. Similarly, from time to time, there are offspring from the side family whose bloodlines are even purer than that of the main family, leaving countless stumped by how such a thing could happen. It's for this reason that the clan conducts a bloodline test on all offspring of the Luo clan, regardless of whether they are from the main family or the side family. You might be from the side family, but due to the purity of your bloodline alone, you are more than qualified to return to the main family and become our next clan head. It would not be inaccurate to say that the inheritance of a bloodline was a random event. In fact, there were many cases throughout the Luo clan's history where the Luo clan bloodline in the main family had suddenly died out, and someone else from the side family had risen to power instead. While the Luo clan did conduct bloodline checks on all newborns of the main family and side family, it was inevitable that there would be lapses in their checks from time to time, especially considering how huge the Luo clan had become over the ages. There were cases in history where a grown-up from the side family had suddenly been shown to possess unbelievably pure Luo clan bloodline, so Luo Ganzhen and the others were not too surprised by the matter. Brother Tianya, I beseech you to lead our Luo clan to greatness. Your bloodline has been shown to be one of the purest in the history of our Luo clan, and you have comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing as well. There's no one who could be more worthy than you to take on this role. Our Luo clan has just suffered a major setback. At a time like this, we need a powerful leader like you to rally everyone. You are the only one who can unite our members together. If you don't agree to it, our Luo clan will really fall into decline. The elders also swiftly voiced their pleas as well, upping the pressure on the middle-aged man. On the receiving end of the pleas, Zhang Xian clutched his hair in frenzy. He had only agreed to the bloodline test in order to create a legitimate excuse to reject the Luo clan. Who could have thought he would end up cornering himself instead? After soothing the stifled feeling in his heart, Zhang Xian took a deep breath and said, To be honest with you, the reason I came here today is to impart the method of cultivating the spatial quintessence of sealing to you all. I didn't come here for honor or power. Putong. But before he could finish his words, and a pair of knees fell to the ground. Luo Xianqing was kneeling before him with a determined look in his eyes. Luo Xianqing pays respects to teacher. Zhang Xian was stunned. You said that I was fast, but aren't you way faster than I am? To actually acknowledge me as your master all of a sudden, is this really fine? Zhang Xian was completely stupefied. He quickly shook himself out of his daze and walked forward to hold Luo Xuanqing's arms, supporting the latter back to his feet. There's no need to stand on ceremony. You can just think of me as a friend. To be honest, while Luo Xuanqing's recklessness had left him with a splitting headache on many occasions, he was actually quite fond of the other party's forthright personality. While it was a pity that the other party did not become his brother-in-law in the end, his impression of the other party still remained rather favorable. I thought that you were my brother, but you actually wanted to become my pupil instead. The Zhang clan's Zhang Xian has infringed on the honor of our Luo clan and broken my younger sister's heart. I can never forgive him for all that he has done. I know that given the limitations of my talents, I'll never be able to catch up with him alone. So I implore you to impart the method to comprehending the spatial quintessence of sealing to me. After I master the spatial quintessence, I shall exact vengeance and slaughter that wretched bastard. Luo Xianqing declared with gritted teeth, refusing to stand up at all. Zhang Xian staggered slightly as a feeling of helpless despair arose in his mind. With a splitting headache once more, he took a deep breath and attempted to counsel the reckless young man. Ahem. Have you ever considered the possibility Zhang Xian also didn't intend for all of this to happen either? I thought of you as my brother, but not only do you want to become my pupil, you are even intending to use the skills you wish to learn from me to kill me. Just what in the world did I do in my previous life to deserve such retribution? Just because he didn't intend for it to happen, he can break my younger sister's heart and abandon her during the engagement ceremony? Just because he didn't intend for it to happen, he can humiliate our Luo clan and trample our dignity as if it was worthless dirt? Luo Xianqing raised his head as he spat with suppressed rage. Elder, I implore you to help me in my vengeance. As long as you are willing to take me in as your student, I'll devote my entire life to serving you once I have exacted my vengeance. This, Zhang Xian really had no idea what he should say. If only he had known that this would happen, he never would have come to the Luo clan. He really was asking for trouble. It's one thing for me to be forced to become the clan head, but even the one friend that I have made wanted to become my student, and the motive for doing so is to kill me in cold blood. What am I supposed to do? Am I to teach you or not? Completely distressed by the situation he was in, Zhang Xian directed another pleading gaze toward Luo Ruoxin, asking for her help. However, the young lady simply looked back at him with a knowing smile on her face, as if she had known that this would happen from the very start. Zhang Xian sent a telepathic message over and asked, Ruoxin, did you know that I would be tested to have the Luo clan bloodline? Wait a moment, is it the effect of your disguise amulet? Despite the doubt he had earlier, the fact that his history was a perfect fit with the young prodigy of the Zhang clan, and his ability to trigger the Zhang clan bloodline, were more than enough proof that he was from the Zhang clan. Since that was the case, the only possible reason that he could think of for the bloodline basin revealing a 9 was the disguise amulet that Luo Ruoxin had given him. The amulet is made from condensing the jinqi of cultivators possessing unique constitutions. Not only is it able to alter one's appearance and aura, it's even able to disguise one's bloodline as well, such that even ancient sages would not be able to see through it. Besides, given that you have comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing, if you reach ancient sage as well, the bloodline that you pass down to your offspring will be largely similar to that of the Luo clan. It's no surprise that the test with the bloodline basin showed a 9. Luo Ruoxin replied calmly. This, Zhang Xian's face twitched upon hearing those words. In the end, the fault lay in the disguise amulet. If he had known that this would happen, he never would have used it in the first place. Just that. He did not think that the amulet would be able to disguise one's bloodline as well. Such an ability meant that one would be able to create an impeccable disguise in the truest sense. Why had he not heard of such an artifact in the world before? Seeing the many emotions flickering across Zhang Xian's face, Luo Ganzhen thought that the middle-aged man was intending to turn them down. So he quickly bowed his head deeper and urged, Brother Tianya, please stop turning us down. The Luo clan urgently needs a powerful clan head to lead us during this time of need. It's not that I'm unwilling to do so, but I'm really not suited to become the head of the Luo clan. Zhang Xian released an exasperated sigh. Give me some time. I need to consult my wife on this matter first. Really, Ruoxin should have told him in advance that the disguise amulet had such an effect. He never would have agreed to the bloodline test if he had known this would happen. Since it was partially her fault, she could not blame him for using her as an excuse. Hearing that the middle-aged man was going to consult his wife, Luo Ganzhen was visibly surprised for a moment before asking, "Oh, is our sister-in-law here too?" "Indeed," Zhang Xian replied with a bright smile as he turned his gaze to the crowd and beckoned. "Lingxi, come here." Luo Ruoxin did not think that Zhang Xian would really toss the ball to her. With everyone looking in her direction, she realized that she would not be able to continue watching the drama unfold as an idle spectator anymore. With a helpless sigh, she leaped onto the elevated platform as well. "Clan head Luo, I don't mean any disrespect, but power and authority mean nothing to me and my wife. We have vowed to spend our life traveling freely around the world, so I fear that I can only turn down your goodwill." Holding Luo Ruoxin's hand tightly, Zhang Xian sent a telepathic message over and said, "Ruoxin, help me turn him down." Having her hand held in front of so many people, Luo Ruoxin's face reddened slightly. She discreetly shot Zhang Xian a irked look before turning her gaze to face Luo Ganzhen. "Since my husband has asked for my opinion, I'll give my view on this matter then. Actually, I don't think it's an issue for Tianya to become your clan head." "Huh?" Shocked by what he had just heard, Zhang Xian's eyeballs nearly popped out. "This isn't the script we agreed on. Remember the script. This isn't the time for you to be improvising." However, he wishes to devote his time to cultivating, so he won't have any time to manage the matters in the Luo clan. Furthermore, his purpose for coming here is to pass down the method to comprehending the spatial quintessence of sealing, so that the Luo clan can recover from the setback of being rejected by the Zhang clan. As long as clan head Luo is agreeable with this, I don't think it'll be much of an issue for Tianya to be your clan head," Luo Ruoxin said with a nod. Seeing a ray of hope, Luo Ganzhen immediately snatched at it. Of course. I have no problem with that. In the first place, they had already promised that they would deal with the miscellaneous affairs, so that the middle-aged man would not be bogged down by administrative matters. In fact, it would be much better this way. If someone inexperienced in managing the Luo clan forcefully attempted to interfere in its matters, it could cause a huge mess instead. Furthermore, considering that the middle-aged man would be passing down the method to comprehending the spatial quintessence of sealing to them, what did they have to complain about? No matter how they looked at it, this deal was beneficial to the Luo clan. They would have to be dimwits to turn it down. Luo Ruoxin shot a glance at the dumbstruck Zhang Xian and chuckled softly. She explained through Jinshi telepathic, "Considering the current circumstances of the Luo clan, there's no way they'll let you go easily. Since that's the case, you might as well just accede to their request for the time being. Our identities are fake anyway, so if you wish to back out at any moment, you can revert back to your original identity. After being unable to find you for some time, they'll get to electing a new clan head." "Is that so? I guess it should be fine then." Zhang Xian nodded helplessly. Luo Ruoxin was right. Given the current turn of events, he had no choice but to go along with Luo Ganzhen and the others. Sensing an immense pressure coming from the rotating sphere in front of them, Nangong Yuanfeng asked warily, "Who are you?" The young lady in front of them did not seem to possess too high a cultivation level, but the sphere rotating in front of her induced a blood-curdling sensation within him. He could feel that the sphere wielded absolute jurisdiction over space. Typically speaking, the young lady should not have been able to control the sphere given the limitations of her cultivation, but for some reason, the sphere seemed to harmonize perfectly with the young lady, almost as if they formed one complete entity. He instinctively knew better than to underestimate the young lady standing before him. A thought came to mind, and Nangong Imo quickly exclaimed, "Teacher, she's likely the little princess of the Luo clan." "Little princess? You are Luo Yusin?" Nangong Yuanfeng clenched his fists tightly together. He had heard that the Luo clan had a highly talented little princess, but as he had not met her earlier, he had decided to simply shrug it off as a rumor. Who could have thought that the other party would actually come all the way out here to stop them. Could it be that the other party thought that she would be able to stop them with her individual prowess? Luo Yisen? You would have been right. But from this day forth, my name is Luo Qiqi. The young lady replied. All along, her real name had been Luo Yisen. Luo Qiqi was simply another alias that she had gone by after she lost her memories while sealing her cultivation. No matter what your name is, the matter with the Luo clan has already been resolved. We have already admitted defeat and compensated the Luo clan with a great sage artifact. May I know what you mean by halting us here? Nangong Yuanfeng asked with a displeased frown. What do I mean? Luo Qiqi's eyebrows shot up. Let's stop wasting time and get it over and done with. Get it over and done with? Nangong Yuanfeng was taken aback. If you aren't going to make a move, I'll be going first. Luo Qiqi harumphed coldly. The sphere in front of her hummed lightly, and all of a sudden, her body appeared before one of the young men. Pung! Fresh blood spurted out from the mouth of the assaulted young man, and he was struck into the ground. Before anyone could react, a person was already severely wounded, and from the looks of it, he would be bedbound for at least 3 to 4 months. Insolence! Not expecting the young lady to abruptly attack them, the faces of the other 3 young men turned utterly livid. They immediately rushed forward to subdue the young lady. Immense might burst forth from their bodies as their powerful auras surged right into the high heavens. In an instant, their attacks had already locked onto the young lady. Despite seeing his students executing their strongest moves simultaneously, Nangong Yuanfeng did not feel relieved at all. Instead, his eyes narrowed in horror as he bellowed anxiously, "Don't do it!" However, it was already too late. Pung! 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 3 consecutive thuds, and the 3 young men were already struck down before they could even figure out what was going on. Just like the first young man, they plummeted heavily onto the ground, unconscious and heavily wounded. Judging from the extent of damage they had sustained, it would be several months of treatment before they were able-bodied once more. Nangong Yuanfeng was on the verge of exploding. With wintry killing intent in his eyes, he glared at the young lady and growled, "Just what in the world do you want? Like I said, let's not waste each other's time. Make your move." The young lady could not be bothered to explain herself to Nangong Yuanfeng. With a cold look on her face, she raised her foot and began walking toward him. Her movements were not too quick, reminiscent of a leisurely stroll in the park, but every step that she took mysteriously covered several hundred meters. Before Nangong Yuanfeng knew it, she was already standing right before him. Realizing that the other party's comprehension of spatial laws was actually far above his, Nangong Yuanfeng felt his hair standing on end. Knowing that he was in a very dangerous position, he quickly drove his strength to the limits, causing an overwhelming aura reminiscent to that of an indomitable dragon to pour forth. As expected of an expert of the 100 schools of philosophers, the descendant of ancient sage Zirong, when fighting with Zhang Xian, he had needed to lower his cultivation, so he had been unable to pull off most of his battle techniques. However, as he invoked his true strength at this very moment, it felt as if the entire dimension was trembling under his dominance. The light of the world was stolen away, plunging the surroundings into disquieting darkness. Not only so, the air around them also seemed to have been sapped dry, creating a vacuum around him and the young lady. Seal. Without the slightest disturbance in her expression, Luo Qiqi raised her finger calmly and tapped the area ahead of her. Voila! Nangong Yuanfeng's raging might abruptly halted in place, and the palm strike that he was executing was also frozen in midair, unable to advance any further at all. Following which, Luo Qiqi casually flicked her finger. Pung! Nangong Yuanfeng was immediately sent flying into the distance. Crimson blood spewed ceaselessly from his mouth, and the profuse loss of blood caused his face to turn frighteningly pale. It was apparent at a glance that he had already sustained severe injuries. They might not have been as severe as his students, but nevertheless, it would already take him several days to make a full recovery. With fear reflected in his eyes, Nangong Yuanfeng watched the young lady slowly walking away into the distance with bated breath. Her ravishing looks and fluttering robe would have made her seem like a deity descending from the heavens. But after witnessing her frightening strength, Nangong Yuanfeng was unable to think of her as anything more than a demoness. At some point in time, the young lady suddenly halted. Without turning her head around, she said, "The Luo clan might not be a match for the 100 schools of philosophers, but it isn't a power to be trifled with either. If you ever wish to challenge the Luo clan again, know that you will be making an enemy out of me as well." After saying her piece, she ripped a hole in space and stepped into the spatial rift, vanishing from the spot. What horrifying strength she wields! How can there be someone as powerful as that on the master-teacher continent? It was only after seeing the young lady's silhouette vanish from sight that Nangong Yuanfeng dared to catch his breath fearfully. He quickly rushed to the ground to feed his students a pill each. It was true that the master-teacher pavilion of the master-teacher continent had been left behind by Kong Shi, but ultimately, the heritage that they had inherited from Kong Shi was still inferior to that of the 100 schools of philosopher, which consisted of Kong Shi's direct disciples. In a sense, this was similar to the relationship between Zhang Xian and his direct disciples, in contrast to the Xianxian faction. With the opening of the Temple of Confucius Du, their 100 schools of philosophers had decided to make a return to the master-teacher continent in a bid to claim the treasures within. They thought that they should have been able to tower over the major powers of the master-teacher continent and force them to submit to them easily with their superior prowess. But who could have thought that even a single Luo clan would wield such frightening prowess? More importantly, the young lady did not seem to be in her 20s yet. To possess such strength despite not having reached her 20s, her talents could be said to be on par with those monsters of the great frontistery of Confucianism, Luo Tianya and Luo Qiqi. The master-teacher continent really isn't as weak as I thought. Nangong Yuanfeng remarked grimly. "Teacher, what do we do from now on?" Roughly half a day later, one of Nangong Yuanfeng's students finally recovered enough energy to be able to speak. "Are we still heading to the Zhang clan? We have to make a trip there eventually. However, given our current state, we won't be able to do it on our own." Nangong Yuanfeng frowned. It would take quite some time for them to recover to their peak. And even so, there was no guarantee that they would be able to get the celestial amulet of legacy from the Zhang clan. After all, they could not simply ignore the rumors that they had heard about the young prodigy of the Zhang clan anymore, especially after experiencing the prowess of the little princess of the Luo clan personally. Rumors might just be rumors, but if the rumors concerning the incredible strength wielded by the little princess were true, the young prodigy was also unlikely to be a weakling. "Then, teacher, what do you intend to do?" the young man asked in confusion. "Send a message to Jinqing Laoshi. Hasn't he been wanting to compete with me? Let him make a move first, and we'll spectate by the side. If we can uncover the trump cards that the Zhang clan wields, our chances of success will be higher. We have already failed to acquire the Luo clan's celestial amulet of legacy, so we cannot afford to fail with the Zhang clan as well." Nangong Yuanfeng harumphed coldly. Hearing those words, the young man quickly nodded and took out his communication jade token. "Very well. I'll send a message over to Jinqing Laoshi right now." The Jinqing Laoshi, whom his teacher was referring to, went by the full name of Tantai Jinqing, a descendant of ancient sage Ziyu. You should quickly heal and condition your body before Jinqing and the others get here. Otherwise, they will just mock us once more," Nangong Yuanfeng said before closing his eyes to focus on assimilating the medicinal energy to heal his injuries. His student also quickly turned his attention to recuperating. They had thought that they would be able to easily force the Luo clan to do their bidding, but their expectations had fallen flat. The master-teacher continent had really changed a lot. Powerful dragons and ferocious tigers were hidden all around, and they could possibly be destroyed if they let their guard down. Laoshi means teacher. Ancient sage Ziyu, also known as Tantai Mieming, is one of the major disciples of Confucius, credited for spreading Confucian thoughts within several states. He was known to be an exceedingly ugly but principled and honorable man, respected and honored by many rulers in his era and beyond. Traveling through the spatial rift, Luo Qiqi returned to her room in the Luo clan. She had thought that the heavens had answered her prayers, and she had waited in anticipation for the blissful life that the world had promised her to arrive. No one could have expected such an outcome. Yet, by some bizarre working of fate, the deep fluctuations in her emotions ended up becoming the catalyst that further assimilated the dimension silencer together with her, granting her greater control over it. It was at that moment that the crowd from the 100 schools of philosophers arrived. She had been in the midst of comprehending the powers of the dimension silencer, so she could not afford to head to the square as well. However, by the time she was done, the problem was already settled. Thus, she tore a spatial rift open to catch up with those aggressors, so as to teach them a lesson. No matter what, she was still a member of the Luo clan. She could not do nothing when it had been oppressed by some other power. Watching the inauguration ceremony outside through her spiritual perception, a slight relieved smile emerged on her face as she thought, that Luo Tinya is indeed a genius. Despite not possessing the dimension silencer, he still managed to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing. With him around, the Luo clan will be in safe hands. Whether I am around or not won't make much of a difference anymore. Despite being a victim in the earlier incident as well, she knew that she had to take some responsibility for the huge setback that the Luo clan had suffered. She would have to shoulder the burden of propping up the Luo clan, at least until it was back on track. But at a time like this, Luo Tinya suddenly appeared, and there was no longer anything to worry about. Since that's the case, I want to pursue the happiness that belongs to me, Luo Chichi muttered with resolve as she stood up. All along, she had lived her life passively. She had simply walked down the pathway that those around her guided her onto. And even when it came to a matter as important as her marriage, she had never tried to fight back or protest at all. But right now, she was already exhausted from living such a life. She did not want to continue living her life so passively, trudging down a road that others had paved out for her. She wanted to pursue what she wanted. So what if Luo Laoshi was around? She, Luo Chichi, would not lose out to anyone. Since Luo Laoshi was able to win Zhang Shi's heart, she was confident that she would be able to do the same. As soon as she made this decision, the pressure that had squeezed her heart so tightly that it suffocated her suddenly vanished. An unprecedented feeling of relaxation coursed through her body. Recalling the words that her teacher had said to her when he left, a slight smile appeared on the young lady's face. She walked out of the room and dashed into the air, swiftly vanishing from sight. This is the method to comprehending the spatial quintessence of sealing. You should quickly go through it right now. If there's any portion you don't understand, feel free to ask me. I'll help you decipher it. In a spacious room, Zhang Xian tapped his finger and imprinted the cultivation technique manual of the simplified Heaven's Path spatial sealing art into Luo Xuanqing's mind. Since the reason he had gone to the Luo clan was to compensate them, he would help them wherever possible. However, it was unfortunate that no one except for him was able to cultivate the true Heaven's Path spatial sealing art, so he could only alter it a little before passing it on to the Luo clan. As for how much of it Luo Xuanqing would be able to make sense of, that would depend on his own aptitude and capability. Going through the new knowledge that had just been transferred over to his mind, Luo Xuanqing could not help but tremble in agitation, and he quickly kneeled onto the floor and exclaimed, "Thank you, teacher." As one of the core members of the Luo clan, he had accessed the full heritage of the Luo clan's spatial arts. But with just a quick scan through Luo Tinya's heritage, it became apparent to him that the Luo clan's spatial art heritage was incredibly shallow. It was like a small pond before a hulking ocean. To pass down such a formidable cultivation technique without any reservation, this was a debt that Luo Xuanqing might never be able to repay in his entire life. Like I have said, I'm not your teacher. Zhang Xian quickly rushed forward to help Luo Xuanqing up. Somehow, it just felt wrong to him to have Luo Xuanqing kneeling before him. The cultivation technique that you have just imparted to me is of unimaginable value. Teacher, I ask of you to accept me as your student. Otherwise, I fear to practice such a formidable technique. Luo Xuanqing exclaimed. All right then. Seeing that Luo Xuanqing was insistent on the matter, Zhang Xian could only nod in agreement. Lineage was extremely important in the master-teacher continent. There were some formalities that could not be disregarded, especially when a heritage was at stake. Seeing that he had received the middle-aged man's agreement, Luo Xianqing hurriedly kneeled down once more. And just as he was about to kowtow, he suddenly heard a feminine voice by the doorway. After acknowledging Tianya as your teacher, you mustn't use the knowledge you have learned against him. Otherwise, you'll suffer a rebound in your cultivation. You should be aware of that, right? Of course, Luo Xianqing nodded firmly. While lineages were highly regarded on the master-teacher continent, there was still no lack of incidents where students betrayed their teachers. In order to ensure that such an incident would not happen among the master-teachers, the master-teacher pavilion implemented the rule that if a master-teacher used the knowledge that they had learned from their teacher against their teacher, they would suffer a rebound in their cultivation. In order to enforce this rule, those who became master-teachers would have to make such a vow under the supervision of the master-teacher pavilion. It's good that you understand that. Luo Ruoxi nodded. Rest assured, I, Luo Xianqing, will never make a move against my teacher. If I ever do, before the rebound in my cultivation even happens, I'll first cripple myself in repentance of my deed. Luo Xianqing declared majestically. Luo Tianya was not only his elder, he was also someone who had unreservedly imparted the spatial quintessence of sealing to him. He would really have to be a beast to attempt to harm someone who had helped him so much. After saying those words, Luo Xianqing stood up once more. He still could not be considered Luo Tianya's direct disciple yet, but connected by a common heritage, he could already be considered half a student. Wang. The moment that Luo Xianqing stood up, the Library of Heaven's path in Zhang Xian's mind jolted. A golden page had materialized in the Book of Heaven's path. Perhaps it might have just been his imagination, but it seemed like it was getting harder and harder to trigger the formation of a golden page. It had not appeared for such a long time that he had nearly forgotten about it. Luo Xianqing spent the next few hours trying to comprehend the simplified Heaven's path spatial sealing art. For portions that he was unable to comprehend, he wasted no time clarifying them with Luo Tianya. It was only when the sky lit up once more that he finally internalized everything. Heaving a sigh of relief, Zhang Xian said, "It's good that you have managed to understand everything. Don't rush things and cultivate carefully. You should be able to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing within a single month." The simplified Heaven's Path techniques were indeed not as easy and fast to cultivate as compared to the perfect versions. Nevertheless, with Zhang Xian's personal guidance, Luo Xianqing should be able to avoid going on meaningless detours as a result of the few remaining flaws, so achieving a breakthrough within a month should still be possible. Thank you, teacher. Luo Xianqing clasped his fist. He began cultivating according to the method that his teacher had just imparted to him, and to his delight, his mastery of spatial arts advanced at a rate that he would have never thought possible before. A thought came to his mind then, and he could not resist asking, "Teacher, may I know how long it took you to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing?" It was one thing for his teacher to be able to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing, but his teacher had actually managed to create such a formidable cultivation technique as well. Countless highly talented predecessors of the Luo clan had devoted their lives to searching for a way to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing, and Luo Xianqing knew that even his talent could only be considered average compared to them. Yet his teacher's cultivation technique actually allowed him to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing within just a single month. Given so, just how masterful was his teacher's command over space? And how long did it take his teacher to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing? Me. Zhang Xian was caught off guard by that abrupt question. Let me think. I guess it should be roughly. At this point, Zhang Xian paused for several seconds. This long? Yeah, about this long. Luo Xianqing was visibly confused for a moment before he understood what his teacher was getting at. In that instant, he could almost see his internal world collapsing. Teacher, you mean to say that you only took a few seconds? I think so. I can't remember exactly how long I took. It might have been a few seconds longer too. I couldn't really feel the flow of time while I was cultivating. Zhang Xian stroked his lower jaw contemplatively. Back then, the dimensional sand had impeded their way forward, so his attention had been fully channeled into comprehending the 4-dan heavenly art of dimension unravel, in order to freeze the dimensional sand in place. Looking back, it did not seem like he had taken too long, likely a few seconds at most. Luo Xianqing could not help but feel deep despair at the huge gap between him and his teacher. He had thought that it was already a considerable feat for him to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing within a month's hard work. But his teacher's inhuman feat had crushed all feeling of glee and satisfaction within him. To comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing within a few seconds. The heck, are you still a human? Seeing the look on Luo Xuanqing's face, Zhang Xian shook his head helplessly. Hurry up and cultivate. You should try to achieve a breakthrough as soon as possible. I'm just stating the truth. Surely you need not be so traumatized by the truth, right? Yes, teacher. Knowing that his teacher was a figure whom he could not hope to match, Luo Xianqing quietly reassured himself that he was still a sufficiently talented genius, and took his leave. Shortly after Luo Xianqing left, Zhang Xian went over to the main hall. With a bright gleam in his eyes, he asked Luo Ganzhen, "Are there any books in the clan detailing insights and methods to achieving a breakthrough to Great Sage? May I know where they are?" It had been nearly a day since he had made a breakthrough to Saint 9-dan Pinnacle, so it was about time for him to make another breakthrough. Due to the differing cultivation techniques that one cultivated, there was no specific method to achieving a breakthrough from Saint 9-dan to Great Sage. As such, Zhang Xian could only refer to the insights of the predecessors to find a path that was suited for him. Insights and methods to achieving a breakthrough to Great Sage? We've had countless Great Sage predecessors in our Luo clan, so we do have a substantial number of such books. However, these books can only serve as a reference. You mustn't attempt to practice them directly, Luo Ganzhen warned. The insights of the predecessors could serve as a source of inspiration, but as everyone had different constitutions and encounters, what they needed to achieve a breakthrough would be significantly different as well. If one were to attempt to blindly follow the path of another, chances were that not only would one be able to achieve a breakthrough, one's cultivation might even go berserk. Thank you for your warning, I'll take note of it, Zhang Xian replied with a nod. Hearing the middle-aged man's response, Luo Ganzhen quickly replied with a smile. You are the most talented cultivator in the many millenniums of our Luo clan's history, so it goes without saying that you'll be aware of something like this even without me pointing it out. Please follow me. Considering how the other party had managed to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing, his talent was indubitably great. Luo Ganzhen would only be viewed in annoyance if he kept repeating the same thing again and again. Knowing that Zhang Xian was going to read books, Luo Ruoxi nodded. Go on. I'll wait here for you. I'll be right back, Zhang Xian said before leaving with Luo Ganzhen. The both of them soon arrived in a library. The bottom 3 levels of the library are open to the inner members of our clan, and everything beyond that are only accessible to the elders. The insights to achieving a breakthrough to Great Sage are all contained at the higher levels. Luo Ganzhen explained as he brought Zhang Xian up to the 4th level. Zhang Xian swiftly looked through the massive collection books around him, and noted that they were mostly notebooks. Most of the notebooks contained messy scribblings, and a couple of them had a lot of blurred words or missing pages, an inevitable result from having been stored for too long. These books don't have particular systems or an order to them, and they are only intended for reference purposes. Please feel free to look through them, and if there's anything you require, feel free to call me. Luo Ganzhen said, Thank you for your help. I'll just casually take a look around. I'll call you if I encounter any problems. After saying those words, Zhang Xian quickly began browsing through the shelves of books. Seeing this, Luo Ganzhen quietly took his leave. Shortly after Luo Ganzhen left, Zhang Xian began swiftly strolling through the shelves of books, while echoing flaws in his head. It took him roughly 10 minutes to collect everything on the level into the Library of Heaven's Path. Compile, Zhang Xian willed, and a new book materialized in his head. He quickly flipped the materialized book open and browsed through it. While these insights didn't form a complete Heaven's Path divine art, they did give me a deeper understanding as to what a breakthrough to great sage signifies. Introspective convalescence is basically the ability to immerse one's spiritual perception into every cell and meridian within one's body. This allows a cultivator to resolve their internal flaws and induce a physical metamorphosis to surpass the limits of Saint Nine Dan. At the same time, the correction of one's physical constitution would also enhance one's longevity, allowing one to live for a longer period of time. Upon reaching Saint Tu Dan's spiritual perception realm, a cultivator would unlock their incipient eye, thus allowing them to inspect their own physical state through their spiritual perception. To achieve a breakthrough to the introspective convalescence realm, a cultivator would have to further refine their spiritual perception so as to make it fine enough to seep even within cells. As simple as it sounded, the effects it brought about were tremendous. If a cultivator's cells were to be damaged or breached by some kind of bacteria or virus, they would inspect the root of the problem through their spiritual perception and channel their jinqi to resolve the affliction. Through this, they would be able to ensure that their physical body was always at its peak state, thus allowing them to exert their full prowess at any moment. While ordinary saint cultivators would be able to live up to roughly 1,000 years, their physical functions would start deteriorating beyond their 800s, thus causing their fighting prowess to decline. At the same time, the deteriorating physical functions would also make it more and more difficult to achieve a breakthrough. "Push yourself to the limits while you are still young," was a phrase that was commonly said among master teachers. Once the physical functions started to deteriorate, it would be nigh impossible to achieve a breakthrough anymore, no matter how hard one tried. This was also why there was such a thing as the golden age for cultivation. However, such a limitation was removed for those who had reached the introspective convalescence realm. The ability to immerse one's spiritual perception into cells allowed one to repair and replace wear and tear in the cells, ensuring that one's body remained in its peak condition at all times. In other words, one would always be able to exert the fighting prowess one wielded in one's prime. Furthermore, even when one's lifespan was reaching the end, if the impetus for a breakthrough came, one would still be able to advance one's cultivation. For this reason, the older a great sage cultivator was, the more formidable they were likely to be. This was in contrast to saint cultivators, where older cultivators were much weaker and more prone to injuries than younger cultivators. Having cultivated the flawless Heaven's Path divine art, my jinqi is much purer than that of other cultivators. This makes it much more difficult for me to make a breakthrough to great sage. Going through the insights that he had collected, Zhang Xian shook his head helplessly. It was indeed not easy to make a breakthrough to great sage. Even after reading so many books, he was still unable to find the most suitable way for him to do so. Forget it. I'll just collect all of the books in here first. If it still doesn't work out, I'll just have to collect the books in the Zhang clan too. The Zhang clan should have a compilation of the insights of predecessors too. Knowing that it was impossible to rush this matter, Zhang Xian calmed his anxiety and headed to the upper floors. Given that the books on this level detailed the insights on making a breakthrough to great sage, it stood to reason that the books on the higher levels corresponded to that of the other realms of great sage. It did not take long for Zhang Xian to collect all of the books in his path and reach the top level of the library. When he finally walked out of the library, he noted that Luo Gan's hen was still waiting around the vicinity. Thus, he walked up to Luo Gan's hen and smiled. "I think I'll need some pinnacle spirit stones and items containing spiritual energy in order to make a breakthrough. May I know if there's anywhere in the clan that I can take such resources from? Also, is there a limit to how much of such resources I could take as the clan head?" After reading through the books, Zhang Xian realized that he needed quite a number of spirit stones in order to make a breakthrough. Sword Saint Xing had given him a clear glimpse into just how loaded the premier sage clans were. Considering that the Luo clan was a premier sage clan as well, a couple of pinnacle spirit stones and items containing spiritual energy would definitely not be much to them at all. Thus, there was no need for him to stand on ceremony for this matter either. There's a quota to how much resources the clan head is entitled to. However, you have just done the clan a great service, so the elders have unanimously decided to give you free access to the resources of the Luo clan, Luo Ganzhen said as he led the way forward. Soon they arrived at a treasure vault. This is the vault where we store the resources and treasures of the Luo clan. The rewards that we offer to meritorious clan members also come from here. Clan head, feel free to look around the vault. If there's anything that interests you, you can just take it away with you. There's no need to hold back at all. Thank you. Not expecting such a privilege to come from being the head of the Luo clan, Zhang Xian's eyes glowed in excitement. If he could take anything in the vault away with him, would he not be loaded if he stored everything in here into his storage ring? If so, he would not have to worry about acquiring resources for his cultivation anymore. But of course, those were just casual thoughts flashing across his mind. He had no intention of realizing them at all. His principles would not allow him to do something like that. He was a master teacher, not a burglar. Even if he had not been there to compensate them, it would be despicable for him to take everything in there. In the first place, he did not have a grudge with the Luo clan, and such an action would be a huge blow to even the wealthy Luo clan. There were many shelves placed around the treasure vault, and all kinds of weapons, gemstones, and spirit stones were placed on them. After gaining possession of the Dragonbone Divine Spear, not even Saint Pinnacle artifacts could catch his eye at all. Similarly, Pinnacle Spirit Stones were not of much use to him, given his current cultivation realm, so he did not dawdle too much around them. What's this? Walking in between the shelves, Zhang Xian suddenly halted in his tracks, and his eyebrows shot up in surprise. On a shelf not too far away, there was a sealed jade box that emanated spiritual energy, so concentrated that it actually moved his heart. Seeing that Zhang Xian was looking at the sealed jade box, Luo Ganzhen explained, "It's an extraterrestrial meteorite. Our predecessors obtained it by some chance. I'm not too sure what it is, but over the years, no one has been able to find any way to refine it or extract the spiritual energy within it, so it ended up being stored in our treasure vault." Extraterrestrial meteorite? Zhang Xian repeated in surprise. He walked up to the sealed jade box and slowly pried it open. Before Zhang Xian could even see what was within the box, something within his body was already trembling in agitation, and a voice sounded in his mind. "Give it to me. I want that hard thing over there." "Who is it?" Zhang Xian exclaimed telepathically in alarm. There were a few things within his body that could communicate with him telepathically. That fool of a clone of his, who always loved to fight for the limelight, was kept in the myriad ant-hive nest. Vicious had not spoken much ever since the previous time they found his upper body in the Sanctum of Sages. Besides, the latter would not even dare to release his spiritual perception without his permission, so there was no way he could have been aware of what was happening outside here. As for Little Amulet, he had kept it in his storage ring, so the latter would not be able to communicate telepathically with him at all. The voice clearly did not belong to that of the Dragonbone Divine Spear either. However, he had heard that voice loud and clear. It was reminiscent of that of a young child, crisp and sharp. It did not seem to be a product of his imagination, just what could have slipped into his body without his noticing. Zhang Xian quickly scanned his body, but to his shock, he could not find anything at all. Unable to take it any longer, he harumphed inwardly. "Who in the world is it? Stop fooling around." "What do you mean by fooling around?" "I'm Little Gourd," the voice replied anxiously. "Little Gourd?" Zhang Xian frowned in confusion. "Aha! Who else can it be other than me?" As those words sounded, a certain gourd lying lazily in Zhang Xian's dantian shook its bottom slightly. The Dongshu gourd? Zhang Xian was taken aback. He was aware that the Dongshu gourd was within the body, and of course, he knew that it was a sentient being. How else could it possibly have been so annoying? But the Dongshu gourd was actually able to speak? Not to mention, to call itself Little Gourd. Don't you find it cringy to address yourself in such a cutesy manner? That's right. After absorbing a lot of lightning energy, I have finally fully awakened. Quick, give me that extraterrestrial meteorite in front of you. I want to eat it. The Dongshu gourd continued shaking its bottom gleefully. You want to eat it? Zhang Xian frowned. Do you know what this meteorite is? He had guessed that the Dongshu gourd was not as simple as it looked, but he did not think that it would actually be capable of speech. Furthermore, given how anxiously it wanted the meteorite, could it possibly have guessed what it was? I don't know what it is, but I know that it's edible, the Dongshu gourd replied. Edible? Zhang Xian turned his gaze onto the extraterrestrial rock. He placed his finger on it, and the Library of Heaven's path jolted. A new book was compiled. He flipped it open and browsed through it. Extraterrestrial falling crystal, an object that has slipped through the cracks of space-time. It can be used to forge artifacts. Uncertain value. Extraterrestrial falling crystal? Uncertain value? What does that mean? Zhang Xian frowned. This was the first time that the Library of Heaven's path had given such a vague appraisal of an artifact. In the past, as long as the item was touched, he would be able to uncover the full history of the object. Yet, for this extraterrestrial meteorite, the description in the compiled book was strangely vague. Uncertain value. Was this extraterrestrial meteorite something valuable or not? It seems like the Library of Heaven's path isn't reliable anymore. Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed. Ever since he reached St. Nine Dan Pinnacle and came into contact with the top experts of the Master Teacher continent, the Library of Heaven's path had not been as trusty a companion as before. To be unable to discern the history of a single rock, it seemed like he could not blindly rely on it anymore. I really should find some time to pay a visit to the Seer Guilds. Zhang Xian sighed deeply as he reaffirmed his decision once more. He considered whether he should pass the extraterrestrial falling crystal over to the Dongshu gourd, but he eventually decided against it. You said that you are a Dongshu gourd, but I don't believe that Dongshu gourds are capable of ingesting something like this. Who in the world are you? Zhang Xian demanded an answer. If the other party was just an ordinary Dongshu gourd, he could have turned a blind eye to it staying in his dantian. However, with the realization that it was gaining greater sentience with time, to the point that it was even capable of speech, he could not help but be concerned about having it stay in his dantian. Should the other party intend to harm him, he would really be in deep trouble. What else can I be other than a Dongshu gourd? Rest assured, I acknowledged you as my master before entering your dantian, so there's no way I can hurt you. I still have a bright future ahead of me. There are countless damsel gourds out there for me to court, so I would really have to be a fool to seek my death. The Dongshu gourd replied haughtily. Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before shaking his head. That won't do. I still don't feel safe with you being in my body. Why don't we make a trade? I'll give you the extraterrestrial falling crystal, but in exchange, you'll have to leave my dantian and enter my storage ring. I'll fall into a deep sleep once more after ingesting the extraterrestrial falling crystal, so you don't have to worry about me bothering you. The Dongshu gourd replied lazily. It seemed to be content with the accommodation that it had at the moment, and it was reluctant to leave. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian frowned. He hated to admit it, but he was completely helpless before the Dongshu gourd. The Dongshu gourd had entered his dantian without his permission, and he had tried time and time again to drive it out. He had tried once more not too long ago, after his cultivation reached St. Nine Dan Pinnacle, but it was to no avail. As long as the Dongshu gourd remained in his dantian, it would be equivalent to having a ticking time bomb in his body. While the other party claimed that it would not wreak havoc, who could be certain that it would hold its end of the promise? Ultimately, it would still be best to get it out first. This matter is not open to discussion. You can either hibernate in my storage ring, or never mention the matter concerning the extraterrestrial fallen crystal again. Zhang Xian said as he shut the lid on the jade box. TSK. Fine then. In the face of food, the Dongshu gourd had no choice but to cave in. It shuddered a little, and before Zhang Xian knew it, it had already vanished from his dantian and appeared in his storage ring. This, Zhang Xian narrowed his eyes in shock. His dantian was within his body, a space that should have been under his control. On the other hand, his storage ring was a separate folded space, which should have been impossible for another being to access without his permission as its master. Yet, The Dongshu gourd was actually able to travel over without any impediment. This effectively meant that the Dongshu gourd was above him, in terms of spatial manipulation. Just what in the world was the Dongshu gourd? Humph, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as it dares wreak havoc, I'll throw the Book of Heaven's Path on it. Zhang Xian harumphed coldly. Fortunately, after Luo Xianqing learned the simplified Heaven's Path spatial sealing art from him, his gratitude had triggered the formation of a new golden page. Considering how the tool could subdue even vicious easily, it should not be too difficult for it to curb a mere gourd. As long as he slammed the Book of Heaven's Path down on the Dongshu gourd, that darned fellow would be smashed into bits. With a trump card to rely on, Zhang Xian suddenly felt more secure. In any case, he had managed to get the Dongshu gourd out of his dantian for the time being, so there should be nothing to worry about at the moment. Thus, he turned his gaze to Luo Ganzhen and smiled. May I take this extraterrestrial meteorite away? Our predecessors have studied the meteorite many times, but were still unable to figure out what it is. Feel free to take it if you want it. Luo Ganzhen nodded. Thank you. Hearing that he could take it, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. With a thought, he sent the jade box into his storage ring. Upon seeing the jade box in the storage ring, the Dongshu gourd immediately rushed toward it excitedly. Its body distorted a little, and the extraterrestrial fallen crystal in the box abruptly vanished without a trace. It was almost as if some mysterious force had swallowed it whole. Following which, just like what it had said, the Dongshu gourd fell into a deep slumber, not moving at all. Seeing that the fellow had toned down for the time being, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. A moment later, he could not help but clutch his head in distress. A speaking gourd. Thinking about it, he sure had a lot of weird things with him. A talking amulet, a talking gourd, a talking spear. It was fortunate that those pig trotters that he had in his storage ring could not speak. If he had speaking pig trotters too, he might just die of shock. Ignoring the issue with the Dongshu gourd, Zhang Xian continued looking through the treasure vault. Very soon, he spotted some decent resources. There were concentrated spiritual essences, precious pills, and unique herbs. He really had to say that the Luo clan was crazy rich. The number of treasures that they had in their treasure vault would leave any cultivator's mouth agape. After taking a couple of items that would help in his breakthrough, Zhang Xian finally left the treasure vault. No matter what, these items had slowly been accumulated through the hard work of the predecessors of the Luo clan. It would simply be too despicable of him to steal all of them. That being said, he did loot quite a few good things. To make an analogy, if the item that he had taken from Sword Saint Xingbak then was referred to as a single unit, the items that he had taken were worth at least 10 units. If not for the fact that he was currently the head of the Luo clan, Luo Ganzhen would have surely thrown him out of the ethereal shrouding city by now. Stowing the items away carefully, Zhang Xian told Luo Ganzhen, I am intending to head out to find an impetus to make a breakthrough. If anything happens to the Luo clan, send me a message, and I'll rush right back. You're going to head out? Cough cough. Luo Ganzhen nearly choked on his saliva. It was in view of the fact that Luo Tianya was from the side family, and didn't feel a sense of belonging toward the Luo clan, that he allowed the other party to take so many resources at once. His motive was simple. He wanted to bring Luo Tianya on board the massive ship, known as the Luo clan, and convince him to willingly serve as its captain. Yet, before that fellow even stepped out of the doors of the treasure vault, he was already thinking of slipping away. You callous man. Can you be any more heartless than that? I know that you don't have much regard for the clan head position, but you can't just dump it aside like that as if it's dirt. Clan head, please hold on for a moment. The elders of the Luo clan has just pushed a motion forward, and they are waiting for your call on the matter. Once this matter is resolved, you can head anywhere you want to. Sighing helplessly, Luo Ganzhen said. What matter is it? Zhang Xian asked. Clan head. I believe that you should have heard about how the Zhang clan has publicly rejected us during the engagement ceremony. Luo Ganzhen said. Zhang Xian nodded. As the primary culprit of the incident, how could he possibly have not heard of it? The Luo clan is the second largest sage clan on the master-teacher continent, and it has always been held in high esteem. Yet, it was humiliated before all of the powerhouses on the master-teacher continent, causing its reputation to be pulled through the gutter. Given that we are weaker than the Zhang clan, we have resigned ourselves to the fact already. But clan head, you are someone who can defeat even the experts of the 100 schools of philosophers. At this point Luo Ganjin's eyes lit up. The middle-aged man before him had comprehended the spatial quintessence of sealing, granting him invincible prowess within his power class. Without a doubt, the latter's talents had reached a height far beyond his imagination. So, our elders have proposed to have you return the humiliation we have suffered back to the Zhang clan. We hope to re-establish the dignity of our Luo clan, and let the world know that we aren't to be humiliated. You want to exact vengeance against the Zhang clan. Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up in horror. Indeed, the head of the Zhang clan, Zhang Xian, is at St. Nindan primary stage, and he has only made a breakthrough 3 days ago. No matter how talented he may be, 3 days will only be enough for him to reinforce his cultivation. There's no way he could come close to matching you, clan head, given how you were able to subdue even Nangong Yuanfeng. Surely teaching that Zhang Xian a lesson should be a walk in the park to you. The more Luo Ganzhen spoke, the more agitated he became. The intention of the elders is to have you challenge the head of the Zhang clan, and teach him a lesson he will never forget. Make him crawl around the ground searching for his fallen teeth. Through cleansing the humiliation that we have suffered, we'll rebuild the reputation of the Luo clan and rise up once more. In the end, the reason why the Zhang clan dared to be so arrogant was because Zhang Xian was the head of the Sanctum of Sages, Yang Shi Senior, and the teacher of leaders of many powers. But in a fair duel, all those titles he had wouldn't do him any good. As long as clan head Luo Tianya displayed his dominance over Zhang Xian, no one would dare to laugh at their Luo clan anymore. Since the Zhang clan dared to trample on their dignity to establish their authority, then they couldn't blame them for doing the same as well. Zhang Xian clutched his hair maniacally. What the hell is with this turn of events? Indeed, it is understandable that the Luo clan would want to cleanse their reputation, especially after they have found themselves a powerful clan head. But the problem is that the darn Zhang Xian you have been cursing all this while is me. Are you seriously asking me to beat myself up? Just what did I do that gave you the impression that I have an interest in self-harm? Do I look like a masochist to you? Once this matter is settled, we'll be able to restore the lost confidence in the Luo clan, and even bring our reputation up to a whole new level. Clan head, I ask of you not to turn this matter down. Once this matter is done, you can go wherever you want to, and we won't question your decision. Luo Ganzhen quickly added. The reason why the Luo clan wielded so much influence on the master-teacher continent was partly because there were many other powers subordinated to it. However, if those powers were to lose confidence in the Luo clan, they could very well tear away from the Luo clan and follow other powers, such as the Zhang clan instead. As such, it was of utmost importance for them to restore their reputation as soon as possible, or else there could be disastrous consequences. And just establishing a new clan head wouldn't be enough to restore confidence in the Luo clan. In the end, the most effective way to convince the other powers that the Luo clan hadn't grown weak was to return the humiliation to the Zhang clan and give that damned Zhang Xian a hell of a pummeling. Of course, the earlier conflict with Nangong Yuanfeng did showcase the prowess of the Luo clan, but the problem was that it might not necessarily be a good decision to besmirch the reputation of the 100 schools of philosophers. While they might have driven away Nangong Yuanfeng, Luo Ganzhen wasn't so arrogant as to think that the Luo clan would actually be able to withstand the wrath of the entire 100 schools of philosophers. At least for the time being, it wouldn't be a good decision to fall out with them. I need some time to think over the matter, Zhang Xian replied with a stifled expression on his face. Why does everyone want to step down on me so much? Does my face look like a good stepping stone? It's not as if I had intentionally rejected the engagement to humiliate the Luo clan. There's no need to think about this matter. Clan head, we have absolute trust in your strength. Luo Ganzhen continued heaping pressure on Zhang Xian as he led the latter out of the treasure vault. The elders are already waiting in the main hall. Once you are done preparing, we can set off right away. Set off right away. Zhang Xian nearly fainted on the spot upon hearing those words. Indeed, vengeance is a dish best served piping hot. In the tens of thousands of years since the founding of our Luo clan, when have we suffered such humiliation before? Of course, we can't and won't go around spreading the battle between the clan head and the 100 schools of philosophers due to the severe implications of the matter. But given the Zhang clan's intelligence network, it's only a matter of time before they find out about it. If Zhang Xian were to flee in fear after hearing about it, we would no longer be able to exact our vengeance anymore. Luo Ganzhen exclaimed in agitation before clasping his fist toward Zhang Xian. Clan head, we implore you to accede to our request this once. This is for the members of our Luo clan, and its tens of thousands of years of heritage. Zhang Xian had never wanted to cry as much as he did in this very moment. All of you are so preoccupied with thinking about the interests of the Luo clan. But have you considered my feelings? I am not just the head of your Luo clan, but the head of the Zhang clan as well. Are you all really going to be so cruel as to force me to challenge, slap, and humiliate myself? Zhang Xian's instincts were to flatly reject Luo Ganzhen. But looking into the burning desire in the older man's eyes, he found that he had no idea how to go about doing so. Thus, after a moment of hesitation, he could only try to put off the decision as long as he could. Allow me to listen to the opinions of the elders first. On the other hand, hearing that the clan head didn't reject his request straight, Luo Ganzhen heaved a sigh of relief inwardly as he gestured Zhang Xian forward. Clan head, this way please. As much as he hated Zhang Xian, he had to admit that the fellow possessed extraordinary capabilities. In fact, it would be no exaggeration to say that he was the greatest pride of the Zhang clan. If they could just give him a good pummeling, the disgrace suffered by the Luo clan would be cleansed. Perhaps they might even be able to bring its prestige to a whole new height. Very soon, the two of them arrived in the main hall. The elders of the Luo clan were already seated within the main hall, and as soon as they saw Luo Ganzhen and Zhang Xian, they quickly rose to their feet with agitated looks on their faces. Clan head, shall we set off right now? Let's rip that bastard Zhang Xian a new one. We'll make that bastard know that snubbing our Luo clan is the greatest mistake he has ever made. Impassioned voices could be heard all over the room. It felt as if someone had poured gasoline all around the area, and raging flames would break out as soon as someone snapped his fingers. Two words flashed across Zhang Xian's mind in this very moment: I'm doomed. It really felt as if he had dug a pit for himself this time around. He had come with good intention in mind, wanting to compensate the Luo clan for what he had done. But in a weird turn of events, he ended up becoming its clan head instead. And if that wasn't enough, before he knew it, he was being pressured to pummel himself. If he were to toss away his disguise and reveal his true identity as Zhang Xian right now, not only would his compensation not be appreciated, the Luo clan might even think that he was toying with them, thus removing any possibility of reconciliation between the two clans. In the worst-case scenario, it could even provoke a war. It took Zhang Xian a very long while to calm down all of the elders enough for him to speak. I understand your emotions, but I don't think it's a good timing to challenge the Zhang clan right now. I don't deny that Zhang Xian is very powerful, such that there's nearly no one in his cultivation realm who would be a match for him. But clan head, you are someone who managed to defeat even Nangong Yuanfeng. We believe that you'll be able to thrash Zhang Xian easily too. We'll send an official challenge letter to the Zhang clan and invite the Master Teacher Pavilion to officiate the duel. As long as we follow the proper procedures, the Zhang clan would be forced to accept our challenge. Why do you say that it's not a good timing to challenge the Zhang clan? Clan head, I don't mean to refute your words, but I feel that this is the ideal opportunity for us to challenge the Zhang clan too. You are from the Side family, and hardly anyone in the Luo clan has heard of you. If not for your pure bloodline, we would have even doubted if you are a member of our Luo clan. Since this is the case for us, it would be even more so for the others. This means that we'll be able to catch the Zhang clan off guard and teach that bratty Zhang Xian a lesson. On top of that, we'll also be able to build your reputation and let the entire master-teacher continent know of your prowess. It didn't even take a minute for the impassioned elders to tear down all of Zhang Xian's arguments. Zhang Xian, wow, all of you make so much sense. I don't even know what I can say anymore. Zhang Xian could see Luo Gan's hen and the other elders' point, and that was precisely why he found it difficult to turn them down. Putting aside the vengeance against Zhang Xian, this was also an ideal opportunity to build up Luo Tianya's reputation. Luo Tianya might have become the head of the Luo clan, but the world was still ignorant of who he was and what he was capable of. Who else would serve as a better stepping stone to build Luo Tianya's reputation than the celebrated young prodigy of the Zhang clan, whose name had been hanging on the tip of everyone's tongue in recent days? In this moment of frustration, Zhang Xian caught sight of Luo Ruoxin in his peripheral vision. There was a dazzling smile on her face. He had no recollection of seeing such a bright smile on her placid face before. In an instant, Zhang Xian felt even more frustrated. Aren't you my girlfriend? Aren't you supposed to support me in my time of distress? How can you remain silent after seeing all this? Just as Zhang Xian had no idea how he should respond to the expectant faces around him, he suddenly heard a telepathic message from Luo Ruoxin. Actually, I think it would be better for you to agree to their request. Agree to their request? Zhang Xian's face twitched. You want me to beat myself up? That's not it. You should lead them first to the Zhang clan. Find a suitable moment to reveal your identity, and force the two clans to sit down and resolve the situation peacefully. Otherwise, given the hostility the Luo clan bears toward the Zhang clan, the more you compensate them, the more weapons they will have at their disposal to use against the Zhang clan. In the worst-case scenario, the Luo clan might even feel prompted to start a war with their newfound power. It won't be easy to reconcile the two clans, but you can't keep putting it off either, Luo Ruoxin explained. Zhang Xian fell into deep thought. Ruoxin's words made sense. The Luo clan had a deep grudge against the Zhang clan. While it was out of goodwill that he wanted to compensate the Luo clan for their loss, such an action was actually no different from stoking their desire for vengeance. Not only would it not resolve the conflict, it would only worsen it. Since our Luo clan is already strong enough by ourselves, why should we reconcile with the Zhang clan? Such poisonous thoughts could very well take root within the Luo clan. If Zhang Xian left things as they were, it would only be a matter of time before a fight broke out between the two clans. Instead of allowing this volatile situation to continue, he might as well resolve it once and for all. After all, he could not possibly keep alternating between Luo Tianya and Zhang Xian. He would die of exhaustion that way. I guess there's no other way. Having thought the matter through, as frustrated as Zhang Xian was, he eventually gave his nod of approval. Very well, I'll agree to your request. Let's head to the Zhang clan right now. Woohoo! Off to the Zhang clan we go. Kick Zhang Xian's ass. Kill that pathetic excuse of a man. The elders cheered in delight. Zhang Xian. The crowd from the Luo clan were already all prepared and ready to set off. Upon receiving Zhang Xian's approval, without any hesitation, they quickly rose to their feet and beckoned their aerial saint beasts over. Dozens of saint beasts immediately appeared in the sky above, forming a truly majestic sight. The purpose of the Luo clan was to rebuild their reputation. As such, even though Zhang Xian could easily teleport them over, especially since he had already grasped the spatial quintessence of sealing, they chose to fly over on aerial saint beasts instead to draw attention. Standing atop the aerial saint beast, Zhang Xian glanced at Luo Ruoxin, who was having trouble suppressing her laughter, and he pouted unhappily. Do you think that I wanted to be in this plight? Just what did I do wrong in my previous life for the heavens to punish me like that? Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. I'll focus my attention on trying to achieve a breakthrough to Great Sage One Dan instead. As frustrated as Zhang Xian was, he knew that it was meaningless for him to think too much into it. Thus, he closed his eyes and focused on sorting out the insights that he had collected. hoping to find an impetus for him to make a breakthrough to great sage. 2 days passed in a flash, and just as Zhang Xian felt that he had found a feasible direction and was about to push for a breakthrough, a voice suddenly echoed in his head. Are you intending to push for a breakthrough to great sage right now? He turned his gaze over and saw Luo Ruoxin looking down at him. That's my intention. Zhang Xian nodded. There was no reason for him to hide this from the young lady before him. If it had been anyone else, he might have felt compelled to explain how he managed to advance his cultivation so quickly, or at least conceal it. However, he did not think that there was a need for him to do so before this young lady at all. For some reason, Luo Ruoxin was not surprised by the swift advancement of his cultivation, and she had never questioned it. On the contrary, it was almost as if she expected it to happen. Don't rush into it yet. There are different classifications for a breakthrough to sainthood, such as celestial saint, and there's also something similar to that for great sage. It would be unwise for you to rush into an inferior breakthrough, Luo Ruoxin replied. There's different classifications for a breakthrough to great sage, Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. Back then, he had found the real Saint Ascension platform and used the energy there in order to push for a breakthrough as a celestial saint. It was precisely due to his extraordinary breakthrough that the capacity and concentration of his Zhenqi far exceeded that of his peers. Was there something like that for a breakthrough to great sage too? There's no such thing as a celestial great sage, Luo Ruoxin replied, seeing through Zhang Xian's doubts. But depending on how one makes a breakthrough to great sage, there could be a vast difference in one's fighting prowess. Zhang Xian had no idea what his girlfriend's true identity was. But if there was one thing that he was certain about, it was that his girlfriend was far more knowledgeable than him in the field of cultivation. If not for her, he might never have successfully become a celestial saint. Since she had said such words, he should indeed take note of the matter. The first realm of great sage is known as introspective convalescence. It allows a cultivator to immerse their spiritual perception into their cells and influence their body from a fundamental level, such as metabolism, Luo Ruoxin explained. An ordinary breakthrough to introspective convalescence requires a cultivator to temper their spiritual perception into a more refined and powerful form. Such a breakthrough isn't too difficult, but it's an inferior method. It's known as the low-tier breakthrough method. Since there was a low tier, there was bound to be a high tier. That being said, this is the only method that all cultivators know of that will allow them to advance to great sage. There's only one person on the master-teacher continent who has managed to design a superior method to achieving a breakthrough to great sage, and succeeded to doing so. Luo Ruoxin continued. Are you referring to Kong Shi? Zhang Xian asked. In the history of the master-teacher continent, the most notable figure was indubitably Kong Shi. If anyone could design a superior method to achieving a breakthrough to great sage, it would have been him. Indeed, it's Kong Shi. Luo Ruoxin nodded. When he was still at St. Nine Dan Pinnacle, he drew the heavenly flames into his body to temper his spiritual perception through its searing heat, making it far more resilient and stronger than before. Due to that, he was far stronger than an ordinary cultivator after making a breakthrough. The capacity of his Zhenqi and the strength that he wielded were unmatched by any normal great sage, and that formed the foundation for him to become the strongest person in history. Heavenly flames? Zhang Xian's body stiffened upon hearing those words. Previously, Kong Shi's will had told him that the key to resolving the innate fetal poison was to become a 9-star master teacher and draw the heavenly flames into his body to sear it. A 7-star master teacher would have cultivation realms ranging from Saint 2 Dan to Saint 4 Dan, a half 8-star master teacher at Saint 5 Dan, and an 8-star master teacher ranging from Saint 6 Dan to Saint 8 Dan. Back when they were still at the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, Luo Ruoxin had taken him to the Saint Ascension platform, and they had managed to get into the folded space embedded in the area. They had found Kong Shi's personal writing, but Luo Ruoxin had given it to him without any hesitation, even claiming that she could easily obtain as much of it as she wanted. Later on, When they entered the Qiuwu Palace, she had said that she was searching for an object and displayed no interest toward ancient sage Qiuwu's heritage at all. And right now, she had even spoken of a high-tier breakthrough method that only Kong Shi had managed to successfully pull off. Could she possibly have some kind of intimate relation to Kong Shi? Otherwise, how could she possibly know so much about him? Facing the abrupt question, Luo Ruoxin was taken aback for a moment before lowering her head silently. When she raised her head once more, there was a slight pleading look in her eyes as she said, "Please don't ask or guess anymore. I really can't tell you anything." But, seeing that Luo Ruoxin was unwilling to share anything about herself, Zhang Xian could not help but feel a little frustrated. Knowing that there was no way around it, he sighed deeply and said, "All right, I promise not to probe any further on that. But in exchange, will you at least tell me if your current name is real?" After saying those words, he looked at Luo Ruoxin with a nervous look on his face. Previously, it was precisely because Luo Qiqi hid her real name from him that he had ended up in such a huge misunderstanding. He was determined not to make the same mistake again. It was fine if Luo Ruoxin was unwilling to share her real identity. As long as he had her name, he was confident that he would eventually be able to find her. Luo Ruoxin was initially unwilling to answer, but looking at Zhang Xian's expression, her heart softened. Shaking her head helplessly, she replied, "It isn't." It was as he had guessed. Staring intently at Luo Ruoxin, Zhang Xian asked on, "If Luo Ruoxin isn't your real name then?" He had thought that it was weird how there was not a Luo clan among the 100 schools of philosophers. And the fact that Luo Ruoxin did not really go by the surname of Luo explained a lot about this. "Please don't ask me any more than this," Luo Ruoxin pleaded. "It's not that I don't want to reveal my real identity to you, but I can't. If I speak, it won't just be me that suffers. Even you will face a great calamity." "I understand. I won't ask anymore." This was not the first time that Luo Ruoxin had said such words. While Zhang Xian was not sure what kind of trouble they would face, considering how she was so frightened despite the power that she wielded, it was likely to be far more complicated than he had thought. "As far as I know, a normal breakthrough to great sage shouldn't draw in the heavenly flames. How did Kong Shi manage to do it? Did he use some kind of unique secret art?" Zhang Xian quickly changed the topic back. Usually, it was only during a breakthrough to great sage Tu Dan Orit body realm that the heavenly flames would be summoned. The heavenly flames would then sear the impurities within one's body in order to form a truly undefilable physique. In other words, Kong Shi would have used some kind of secret art in order to draw the heavenly flames while pushing for a breakthrough to great sage One Dan. Seeing that Zhang Xian was not probing any deeper into her identity, Luo Ruoxin heaved a sigh of relief before answering. "I'm not too sure how he managed to do it either, but I do know where to find the method to do so." "Where?" "If he could find the secret art required to bring the heavenly flames upon him to temper his body and spiritual perception, not only would he be able to enhance his fighting prowess, he would also be able to resolve the threat of the innate fetal poison. In a sense, this was killing two birds with one stone." "The Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters," Luo Ruoxin replied. Back then, when Kong Shi was pushing for a breakthrough to great sage, he had already founded the Master Teacher Pavilion. It was in the headquarters that he found the inspiration to create the secret art and successfully advanced his cultivation to great sage. So, as long as you head to the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters, you should be able to find the secret art. Halfway through Luo Ruoxin's words, Zhang Xian's eyebrows suddenly shot up. He flicked his wrist, and a communication jade token materialized in his grasp. Seeing Zhang Xian's actions, the young lady swiftly realized that something had happened. "Did something happen?" "Something has happened to the Sanctum of Sages." Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up. The message on the communication jade token that he had just received had come from Zhan Shi of the Sanctum of Sages. "The Sanctum of Sages?" Luo Ruoxin frowned. Zhang Xian nodded. He quickly went through the contents of it and said, "Someone has barged into the inner sanctum. I need to head over to take a look." As he said those words, he got to his feet. "I'll follow you," Luo Ruoxin said. "All right, Knowing that his girlfriend's prowess could easily match any sempiternal realm cultivator, Zhang Xian nodded without much hesitation. They quickly left the room on the back of the aerial saint beast and leaped away. Clan head. Noticing Zhang Xian's abrupt departure, Luo Gan's hen and the others hurriedly rushed over with astonished looks on their faces. I have some urgent matters that I need to attend to, Zhang Xian said. He could not possibly reveal the fact that he was the head of the Sanctum of Sages, or else that would be equivalent to giving his identity as Zhang Xian away. But the Zhang clan? Luo Gan's hen exclaimed anxiously. I'll head to the Zhang clan after I'm done dealing with the matters there. You don't have to worry, Zhang Xian said with a wave of his hand. The ones who had snuck into the Sanctum of Sages could very well be from the group that kidnapped Zhaoya and his other students. They had managed to get away from him last time, and he was determined not to allow it to happen again. But Luo Gansen frowned. Enough. This matter isn't open to discussion. I'll come back in time to deal with the Zhang clan. Zhang Xian waved his hand impatiently. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a spear and pierced the space in front of him. TSS-la. A dimension rift was ripped in the space in front of him. He quickly slipped right in, and Luo Ruoxin followed closely behind him. In the blink of an eye, they had already disappeared from sight. This is traversing through dimension rifts. The faces of Luo Gan's hen and the other elders paled in fright. They had known all along that their clan head was an incredible prodigy. Someone of mediocre talent could not possibly have managed to comprehend the spatial quintessence of sealing. However, the fact remained that he was only at St. Nine Dan Pinnacle, so it was inevitable for them to feel that his powers had yet to fully mature. However, the feat that the clan head had just pulled off made them realize that they might have been underestimating him all that time. Just what happened for our clan head to head off in such a rush? Luo Qingqian asked. I don't know. However, since our clan head has already given us his word, let's continue our journey to the Zhang clan. Until we get that Zhang Xian on his knees, begging for mercy, the rage in my heart won't be quelled. Luo Gansen spat with a cold glint in his eyes. The other elders roared in agreement. This was not the first time that they had headed to the Zhang clan, but never had they felt so exhilarated as they did that day. Finally, the Luo clan would be ushering in its next spring. A dimension rift opened, and Zhang Xian and Luo Ruoxin jolted out. Taking a look at their surroundings, they had already arrived at the entrance of the Sanctum of Sages. Driving the Jinqi in his body, Zhang Xian swiftly reverted to his original appearance. Glancing at the young lady beside him, he noted that Luo Ruoxin had also taken off her disguise. Thus, they quickly entered the Sanctum of Sages. What happened? Barely after entering the Sanctum of Sages, the first thing that Zhang Xian noticed was that the ground was covered with the rubble of collapsed buildings, and countless holes could be seen here and there. It felt as if the Sanctum of Sages had just been through an extreme battle. It's the aura of the otherworldly demons. Activating his eye of insight, Zhang Xian scanned the area and saw the killing intent of the otherworldly demons and the auras of master teachers lingering around the area. Clearly, the otherworldly demons had invaded the Sanctum of Sages, and an intense battle had broken out. Sanctum head, you are back. While Zhang Xian was still scanning the vicinity, Zhan Shi, Ge Shi, and several more elders of the Sanctum of Sages flew over. What happened here? Zhang Xian asked grimly. Reporting to the Sanctum head, the otherworldly demonic tribe invaded the Sanctum of Sages and barged right into the inner sanctum. Zhan Shi clasped his fist with a doubtful look in his eyes. However, they only left with Sage Kuei's sculpture in hand. They didn't take anything else, and they didn't start a massacre either. All they did was destroy a couple of buildings and cause pandemonium before escaping the premises. They stole Sage Kuei's sculpture? Otherworldly demons? Zhang Xian was stunned for a moment before his eyes narrowed in realization. He clenched his fists tightly as he mumbled. Could they be here for vicious upper body? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.